right, it's indeed a very, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of The Tackle. Being the Friday of 23rd April 2021, tarehe 23 mwezi wa 4 mwaka 2021. Nashukuru kujumuika na nyinyi tena, lakini kama kawaida naomba kwamba ukifika tafadhali piga ama bonyeza like. Ukilike unaweza kujua kwamba unatazama, and that you like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. This is a Friday of 23rd April 2021. Program Sheria Wiki Hii ambayo inakukujia kila siku ya Ijumaa, ambapo tunazungumzia mambo ya sheria ambayo yamekuwa yakifanyika kwenye wiki, alafu najua tunakuambia vipi ni nani alifanya makosa wapi, ama nani alifanya jambo nzuri wapi na kwa nini. Haya, kama kawaida request ya kwamba ni join, please like. When you like, I get to know that you're watching us. Sometimes like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. Ntaanza na watu wa airtime haraka kwa sababu sitaki kesi. Nione nani ambao wameanza kuingia wa kwanza haraka ndio sitaki makezi za wananchi. Anyway, haya. Kwanza kabla tujaingia kazi, kama kawaida lazima tuende mbele za Mungu tuombe, alafu tukirudi tunajua ni vipi. Mighty Father, we come before you this morning. We worship you, glorify your name. Thank you, Father, for an opportunity to be alive this morning. We thank you for this program. We thank you because you've given us something to wake up to. We even thank you for every Kenyan who is awake this morning. We pray that you may meet them at their point of needs. Every struggle and every pain that they have, I pray that you may speak to them and may you help them fix the problems that they have. Even thank you for this program. We thank you for the panelists. May be with them. We thank you for the audience. And when we start off, when we finish, glory and honor shall come back to your name. In just mighty name I pray and believe. Amen and amen. Asante sana. Acha nione ni kina nani wameamka haraka mapema. Maria Ekuru, acha nianza na watu wa airtime. Sitaki makesi na wananchi. Haya, Maria Ekuru number 1, number 2 George Kanure, number 3 Kimtai Vini, number 4 Edu Kapken, number 5 Kiblaga Trotich, number 6 Benedict Koskei, number 7 Osovia Chirchir Vincent, number 8 Ezekiel Drop, number 9 Karoki wa Masi, number 10 Davis Karanja. Hao ndio watu sasa, lakini naona mtu wa kwanza pale ni Bazu George Kanure, so yahitaji hata time, so hata niongeza mtu mmoja hapo, babake Willy ndiye atakuwa namba 10. George Kanure hapo ndiye nafaa sponsor kwanza. Haya, we'll see you. It's a very, very good morning. Karibu sana kwenye Tackle. I request on joining, please like. When you like, get to know watching us, and after you like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. This is Sheria Wiki Hii on Friday. It comes to you, Dr. Ekuru Aukot, and today we also have Dr. Abraham Singoe, who is a legal advisor to the Deputy President, and Arnold Maliba, who is a public policy analyst. Tunaanza kama wewe tulianza kazi Monday. Tunaanza na State of the Nation. Tunaanza na State of the Nation. Tafadhali nipigie simu 0779-800-010 au 779-800-010. Niambie mahali ulipo ikoje. Kama ulala barabarani tunakuambia good night. Kama ulala nyumbani tunakuambia good morning. So inategemea mahali ulala. Unipigie simu niambie State of the Nation hali ulipo ikoje. Nambari ni 0779-800-010. Nimeweka nambari hapo 0779-800-010. Piga simu uniambie hali ya nchi mahali ulipo inakwaje. Tafadhali nimeona kuna Nderitu ameshare hapo. Asante sana Nderitu, nashukuru sana. Nambari niyo nimeiweka pale 0779-800-010. Please call in and tell me how the state of the nation is wherever you are. Mahali upo hali ya hanga iko hivi. Serikali inakulisha ama inakuvinya vipi? Mahali inakupeleka ulala barabarani ama ulala nyumbani. Kimtai Vini anasema good morning to you Duke again. Anasema Hamia asante sana. Kiblaga Trotich good morning. Benedict Koske anasema good morning to you. Olosofia Chirchir good morning. Lamu County asante sana. Ezekiel Rob niko ndani. Karoki wa Masi tuned in from Kayole. Asante. David Karanja yuko tuned in. Babake Willy morning. Gamaliel baba yao hapo niko asante sana. Joseph Nyaguti good morning. Alafu naona pia Wanaina Njeri anasema iko tuned in. Morgan Mosbey anasema iko tuned in. Mwangi Simon Gasman mtu wa gas anasema morning. Kaka Chris good morning to you. Ben Menja tuned in asante sana. Mwangi Simon Gasman anasema iko tuned asante. Arnold Maize hello good morning. Lawi Kipkoi tuma credit haya wewe number 89 ole sana. Gideon Kikro anasema good morning tuned in asante sana. Is Aukot Isaac hello Jerabito good morning to you my brother. Kingdom Mesh Kib kumbe unajua maombi. Bwana mimi niliwaambia last week mimi nilikuwa bishop. Haona habari. Waje ulikuwa naangushanga watu. Sianza na mimi bwana, I can call fire.
Anakushika shetani kwenda.
Kuru na haribu. Mimi naweza ita moto bwana.
Kuna kuangusha mara mbili. Unaweza angusha mtu kwa dhambi.
Panaanza yangu ilikuwa ile ya kusafisha wanadhambi. Turoja watu. Haya naona Nigeria. David Kitu good morning to you from Kapsabet kama Waiganjo. Wapi here time pole sana umefika namba 100 na kitu. Davis Karanja haya basi tuma namba yako kwa inbox utaweza kutumiwa na producer atakusort. Ateptutit kutoa morning GB tuned in asante sana Justin Kinywa. Danny from Kirinyaga, Mwangi Simon Gassman, na kuona Benedict Kosgei. Haya, Ben Menja, morning Gerald watching from Westlands. Henry Ford Kisinja niko ndani. Eduardo Muthe ako ndani. Titus Kipkirui, Aaron Derithu, morning GB. Good morning to you, my brother. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate. Kipto Eli, hiyo credit ikambi toko. Namba sasa 200. Kipkemoi Kabram Koech airtime please. Wewe namba sasa 300. David Kamau, good morning. Tackle, I wish everyone a blessed day. Thank you sana Senkuya. Na kuona Elton Jones Pachero asema yuko ndani. Kethuru Junior and some ask Dr. Abraham the qualification ya kuwa legal advisor ya somebody. Haya, Damuliza Kiblima Brono tuned in from Nakuru. Inoshas Collins tuned in from Nandi. Elton Jones Pajero anasema Namgoi, asante sana. Nambari ni 07798010 State of the Nation. Paul Bitok mzee mwenye good morning. Good morning to you. Na watu wameelewa, nashukuru sana. Mashugini Danieli, good morning from Mavoko Gilberto locked in, asante sana. Amo Maze anasema ya time come. Chris Kisni, good morning tuned in from Eldoret. Andelo Mambo Dagoret well represented. Anita Jessiria, good morning from Langata. Haya, Anita Gumba upo mbali, good morning to you. Edwin To morning tuned in from Juja. Kibli Marabrono, good morning from Nakuru. Ken Koech, morning. Ken Chumba, good morning. Gerald Koech Ruta, I had time. Number sasa 400. Honorable Jules Favor, good morning Bishop. Asante sana, Zuru unajua. Asante sana, Bwana Yesu asifiwe. Allow keep quiet tuned in from Meru. Asante sana Costa K, good morning Bitok. John Mark asema those panelists to support me in pursuing diploma in law, paralegal studies. Haya, takusaidia tuna wisdom. Sisi ndio tunapeana neema, hatuna pesa. Tutakusaidia na information. Tutakusaidia utafanya aje upigie paralegal. Sasa nitaambia kupe mawaidha. Billy B Adija anasema good morning. Good morning to my brother Brand Karanja, good morning tuned in. Shadi Rono, good morning Amin. Munga Lucha continue from all the way from Coventry, United Kingdom. Anasema iko ndani, asante sana. Geja Graphics.
My city for 5 years.
Oh really? You are in Coventry?
I was in Warwick. So I lived in Coventry too.
Coventry ndio sama mara kwanza nikafikiria ni kanisa. Unajua maneno ya kuzunguka tu vile.
It was part of the industrial city in the UK. And when the Germans wanted to disable the British, they bombed Coventry, and that's part of what they call the Black County.
Wow.
Well, so it's a very historic city.
Okay. That's very interesting. Nzuri kumbe tutakuwa natusaidia na historia pia. Keja Graphics pia ni mtu wa diaspora. Asante sana ndugu yangu, good to see you today. Haron, morning kutoka Kapenguri ya tuned in. Chumba Edu Kibrugud, good morning. Tako logged in from Eldoret. Rupa Mall, asante sana watu wa Rupa Mall. Watu wa Eka Hotel, asante sana. Nilienda pale nikapewa bottomless coffee at Tackle. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. Chumba Edu Kibrugud, good morning. Tackle from nimeona. Amika sasa mko connected. Devi Karanja, good morning from Kasarani Equity. Haya, salamu naona ni mingi. Nitakuja kurudi nijue na pesa salamu. Naona wakili hapo ameingia, jamaa wa pale Nyanza. Good to see you. Thank you so much. Good to see you wakili. Iteni mwakili zenu wote kuja zungumza na wakili wakubwa wenu. Haya, Ekuru. Hii salamu ni mingi sitamaliza, lakini tutaendelea kuchukua masimu. Alafu tutajua state of the nation iko vipi. Lakini meanwhile tuambie hali ikoje?
Hali siwezi kusema hali ni sawa.
Sema hali si hali.
Hali si hali. Bado tunasukuma gurudumu la maisha. But it's been a very dramatic week. We've seen many things happening. The people wanted to change the country are already beginning to cry foul that they are being sabotaged. So naona tu ni sarakasi za kawaida za siasa. But COVID is also still ravaging Kenyans. The relief is that some doctor friends of mine are telling me that there's a little bit of relief. I mean, I think the cases seems to be going down. Sometimes, I think 2 weeks ago, you could wait for 5 days to get a bed, say, in Nairobi Hospital and many other places. But now, at least, the waiting period has reduced. So, I mean, there's some hope. But the other thing also that's happening, talking to Kenyans, or just ordinary Kenyans, people really want the economy to be reopened because people are really suffering. You can imagine, the eateries, places of entertainment. It has really affected a mass of Kenyans, waiters, waitresses, watchmen, So, I mean, the state of the economy is still very, very, very bad, and Kenyans are in pain.
Okay. Even the Bali, Dr. Abraham Singh, good morning to you, sir.
Morning.
How are you?
Very well.
You doing well? Why are you looking cold in the corner? Wama bwana, kuna samosa hapa na kuna chai. Good to see you. It's been a long time. It's a long time since you were here last. But you're happy to see you. What do you think is the state of the nation?
People are very anxious. People are hurting.
And just speaking for the agricultural sector, the rains have delayed.
Yeah.
Especially in the food producing areas of the country. And there's been very little in terms of state subsidy and state focus on the agricultural sector. And therefore, there is a lot of anxiety in terms of the state of food security in the country, especially in the next couple of months. Like Ekuru has said, pia kuna wasiwasi, especially in terms of business. The cost of living has skyrocketed. The cost of fuel is ridiculous. I understand that now the cost of gas is going to go up as well.
Yeah, they're removing it from the exempted.
So the net effect of all that is that Wananchi are feeling the pinch, and yet there is no clarity in terms of responsive economic policy from the state. State is still gobbling debt. We have borrowed enormously, and we are, I'm sure, paying every day for that. And yet citizens are wondering, where is this borrowing going? Why are there no...
Just hold on the line, please.
Why are there no immediate remedial measures? Because some of the borrowings are linked to COVID response. What are the safeguards that have been put in place? So I think people generally, people are struggling. The other point that I want to make is that people are also they're still shocked by this COVID thing, and so even in terms of civic response, Wananchi no longer have bandwidth to be able to respond to anything else except survival. People are trying to survive, eke out a living. You saw what happened on Thika Road the other night, when people spent the night there because the police barricaded the road, but yet Wananchi could not actually do anything. They could not, because people are shell-shocked. People who are trying to, eke out a living, they're trying to survive. In the face of that kind of repression on a normal day, I think people would have done something.
And people are coming from their struggles, trying to get home on time. And then the very government is actually frustrating them.
Absolutely.
So I think maybe before we pass on to Akili, the other Akili, I wanted to ask
so maybe you can listen him after that. Hello, Jambo, good morning.
Good morning, Gerald. How
State
are
of
you?
the nation, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. This is Kalia from Eldoret.
Yes, Kalia, how are you?
Nipo salama, nashukuru.
Hali ya nchi iko vipi kwenu huko? Nasikia jana kulinyesha.
Eldoret kulinyesha. That's the biggest news. Because we're worried. But then apart from the rain now,
yes.
You notice that unlike any other time wakati kunapandwa,
yes.
Wakati watu wanapanda kawaida sehemu hii, that is when the economy unapata watu wapo mjini. You usually observe Eldoret town wakati watu wanafanya upanzi, there is usually a lot of people in town.
Okay.
Unlike kawaida, there is nobody around, there is no activities kuonyesha kwamba that people actually that government are just as empty as kawaida tu. Hakuna
shughuli kwenye town, kwenye jiji.
Hakuna shughuli mjini. Then another thing that you notice is that and I think this is something that I've been actually talking about since Monday.
Yes.
Is that there was very little done to not only the agricultural sector but everyone who is in business to try and cushion them against yale makali ya COVID-19.
Okay.
And so you notice that the town is generally cold.
All right.
So kila mtu anacomplain.
So it means then even as we head towards the end of the year, the economy will even be worse because then hakuna mahindi ya kuvuna, hakuna ngano, inamaanisha uchumi unaendelea kumia zaidi.
Siasa economy peke yake. Even the way people behave, even the behavior of psychological to kitazama jinsi watu wanafanya. So when what's happening in the next 2 months,
unapotea. Sijui simu yako vipi, unapotea.
Saizi unanipata? There's a lot of anxiety in the streets, I usually tell people trying to gauge the way the nation is, panda boda. So kipanda boda pale, you just get all the stories.
Salamu ya kwanza ni haki nchi.
Which is true, by the way.
So you notice that there's a lot of anxiety in this town right now.
Okay.
And the friends of mine who've been coming to town, and notice that people no longer even, the people who we knew as social people,
Okay.
are staying in their houses because they've generally lost business. So, if I'm talking about this town, I would say there's still a lot of uncertainty. People asking whether the curfews are Italy, because if you notice that this is a town that also depends a lot on entertainment. And by if you are walking this town around 8:30, you only notice that kuna polisi wanaelekea na kuna wananchi wa struggle kufika nyumbani. Like that is the last slot when wanatoka town. So by
marathon.
the trouble with this town, and this is a town whereby there's a lot of hotels, hospitality. Actually, Eldoret is just you notice that apart from Atkata,
Yes.
there are a lot of hospitals in Eldoret. There are really picking up is the hospitality industry. But if you even you're to observe right now, there are a lot of, even the small hotels that are just dying off. And so, I think it's the disaster that came with COVID has not actually happened. It is now happening because this is now the time when you're noticing actually the real financial, the real economic impact is now being seen in this region.
Sawa ndugu yangu. Thank you so much for calling in. That was State of the Nation. Umesikia vile mambo iko. Asante sana MC Kalia. Nashukuru sana ni chama amenakwisha kettle deep. Mpiga simu. Haya. Naona Daktari Ojuanga anasema great show. Asante sana daktari. Bernard cheers. COVID has affected all the world, not Kenya. Steven Mwangi following. Brian Karanja na kuona. Alafu naona pia Karanja bana tuma nini utashughulikiwa na producer. Acha mambo mingi. Haya, Ekuru.
No, just wanted before Maliba comes on board, yeah? You know, one of the things that I think Abraham has hinted is that yes, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of anxiety, but I think there's also anger. Kenyans are very angry.
Yes.
And I feel even if you look at the state of the nation, they can actually, you can see betrayal on the faces of Kenyans. You know, and that for me leads to a very fundamental question that, and now that we are blessed to have the Deputy President's legal advisor here, I was wondering, Abraham, which really will you say today, which of the Jubilee campaign promises are being implemented at the moment to try and assuage or make Kenyans at least feel better, because there are so many promises that were made at campaign. So now, can Kenyans actually ask, because this is what I get on the ground. People are wondering, what is this government doing? But I remind them, but you know, there was a campaign pledge by Jubilee, we'll do this, we'll do that. So I wonder really, is there anything happening? You know, you're an insider.
Well, I think... you know, it's interesting you've put me on the spot already.
You know, here we tackle.
It's a real hard tackle in the first minute of the game.
It was too early.
Yeah, indeed. I think if you listen to the interview by the Deputy President
I missed that, but I'm going to watch
about
it.
a week or two ago,
You'll watch him again next
you
week.
should watch him actually.
You'll watch him
because
here.
Next week.
Yes.
Yeah,
Excellent.
because he spoke to some of these issues, and part of it is to say that when they came into office in the second term, they used the first term to build an enabling environment. That is the premise.
Right.
All right, improve infrastructure, build the railway, you know, expand land titling, you know, like digital learning, you know, infrastructure, etc., etc. The second term was then supposed to grow the economy.
Right.
Through the housing program,
Are we growing the economy?
you know, through industrialization, etc., etc.
Yes.
Now, the Deputy President made it very clear that immediately the second term started, you know, that agenda was dropped.
Okay.
He made it. He conceded.
At least he
himself.
was honest.
Yeah, he was very candid. So that agenda was deemed no longer a priority.
Right.
Because then we went into the business of a handshake, you know, the business of BBI, and other advisors began to come in, you know, to bear on the original compact that Jubilee had promised Kenyans, and therefore there was a big departure from that initial social.
So in short, we don't have an agenda being implemented.
I'm not speaking for government.
Yes,
but the point is, I'm sure there is an agenda, but it's not what Jubilee necessarily promised to deliver.
Fair enough.
He has tackled him. Arnold Maliba. At least lakini alifunguka by the way. Jamani.
I like that candidness is what we want.
No, he was very candid.
Let's give it a chance.
Arnold. Arnold, good morning.
Morning to you.
Good to see you. It's been it's almost an year now.
No, it's just
When
been
was the last time you?
I was here with you last earlier.
It was last year before we
No,
broke
no,
for holidays.
This year, I think.
This year.
Oh, he's been here this year?
Yes, we went.
Oh, really?
I'm actually happy he's maintained his tradition of actually bringing coffee in the studio.
We are happy. For that reason, we are happy.
The only contribution I can make during these hard times.
In fact, everyone should be coming in with something. Unajua, nyumba ya nabii unaingia na kakitu kwa mkono.
So as a
Fungu la tatu.
so actually as a request to the producer and Bitoka, as you host the show,
Yes.
just ensure that you pair me with him every day. You know I come from Kakamega and it's a very important thing. Now, of course, the state of the nation is what I would call we are at crossroads. I don't think anything has changed this year. So much is happening. And since we are in paralysis, we actually are at a level where we can only analyze our paralysis. We are not moving. We are not moving. As in, if anything, there is a lot of regressing and not making progress. But one more thing I would probably, since you talk about the Bible a lot of times, in Jeremiah 31:15, there is one of those very famous verses that talks that a voice was heard in Ramah, weeping, and Rachel was crying for her children, and she could not be comforted because they were no more. Actually, we are a nation of the weeping. You go online and you realize people are lamenting. There is a lot of lament everywhere. And somehow the government has put on, or rather they're actually just playing by the ear, just watching us, acting like they really don't care. So literally, I do not think, but if it were not for COVID, I think as a nation we would be in a very bad place. Because people are very angry, and a country that has got civil servants that ordinarily want to come off with a lot of rudeness, even advisors for the president, you will see them telling them, where are you? You people are just guys who are threatening, you can't do anything. This revolution thing can only work online. And then, of course, we are jeering and making fun of the middle class. And sometimes I really wonder if people know what a tired middle class can do to a country. On that Saturday, when we were looking up people on the roads, just imagine if those guys just got out of their vehicles and walked home or went wherever, what would have happened?
Or walked to the police.
Not really, but the police were very few. Also, I also think it's a good challenge. There are about 1,400 people showed up on our shows, sometimes at the beginning of the 19th century. And they were able to colonize us, and our ancestors didn't do so much. That's why you will actually find some 12, 20 police officers can actually stop thousands of us. And because we are law-abiding, we want to actually remain, or rather keep to our end of the bargain in this social contract.
Analyst tried to do something.
And then those other guys think that we are cowards just because we are trying to be law-abiding, trying to talk to them and being civil and reasonable. And then people come off and think like we are not moving anywhere. So the country is, of course, there's a lot of lamentation you can see online, and it makes a lot of sense. The other bit of it around these crossroads we are in, you see what is happening in IBC. We are trying to fill in the other commissioners who left. I think that should be a very important process for all of us, because if divisive elections is anything, if IBC has always been that particular end that causes a lot of emotions, passion, and pain during elections, we need to actually focus on that process. Somehow we have forgotten, we are busy looking at other things. So that is something that we really need to look at. Of course, the JSE interviews are going on. We've seen some good attempt at people looking at their leaders. And you also get some lessons that we really want a CJ who is up there. But when it comes to making elections, we are choosing all these funny characters on the road just because perhaps they speak the language we speak. If we were just to transfer the demands we are putting on the CJ, just look at online. I'm not talking about even the interviewing panel. I'm looking at the sentiments online. You realize that we put the threshold so high for the CJ. But for people who are going to administer state, we are choosing all manner of characters, and very funny. And so probably we should just transfer those demands to this other end, and a lot of this lamentation will not be there.
Of course, maybe that's why there's a proposal, Maliba, on this education, and maybe I hope we'll find time to discuss
Yes,
about
we'll
it.
get into that.
Yeah.
Just
Yes.
to
So,
avoid
and-
delving into the interview.
So another thing, of course, I'll not actually talk about COVID because we know exactly where we are. But of course, you have seen the Jubilee, UDA, TASO. It's one of those interesting things we need to look at. I know the other day UDA declared a dispute.
Yes.
Because I think their coalition agreement says that both sides must talk to each other, and then
Who are they coalescing with?
PDR initially.
It has now been baptized.
So that if they were to move out, it has to be
There's a bishop here.
it has to be consensual on both sides. But then I think the other side, Jubilee, decided a few guys sat somewhere and just wrote a letter and moved on to do whatever they did. So I also want to see how that turns out. But the other thing also that UDA has done, I've actually had a lot of complaints from people who are trying to register parties, who are trying to complete the processes of party registration, is that for out of UDA's problems with Jubilee, the process has become even harder and difficult. It's taking forever.
Oh no, that's because the ORPP is being manipulated and used to try and
system.
and kill especially small political
I
parties.
don't know if the system exists. But anyway,
But finally,
Ekuru, very quickly, yes.
Finally, on this one, actually, on the state of the nation, there's a lot of political prostitution that is going on. A lot of incest, as in there's
Political
so much
incest.
going on, as in Oparanya is
And
meeting-
realist as in where this guy comes in from.
Oparanya is meeting with this guy. Hisakitu is meeting with the other one. Kuro is meeting with somebody else. William Ruto is meeting other people. Like,
The only man that Ekuru is meeting me, and I'm a bishop. The man I can do is to pray for him.
people, as in these are people are
The closest I'm
meeting.
meeting anyone is Abraham Sinoe, who was the deputy president.
So, as in people, as in at this particular, actually, we are at the peak season of this particular what I call political prostitution. Everyone is meeting everyone everywhere, and they are not fighting.
Yeah.
Probably also as a people, I always have to infer back and call in people. The lesson we will take in as a people is that you realize that everyone is meeting and no one is killing the other one.
Yes.
They're talking to each other, and then when they come in after they've concretized their coalition building and everything else, then we will actually be the ones taking the hardline stance, which is actually very wrong.
All right. There's something I want us to delve on, Ekuru, very quickly, on the issues of the roadblocks and the barricades that we had over the weekend.
Yeah.
Because you realize that it even poses more danger to the police themselves. The other day, 2 lorries rammed into the police barricades on Thika Road. I think adding several ones. It could get worse. I'm imagining if it was on Saturday and an oil truck rams into the jam that was there. How could we live with that history? Let's look at the legality of these roadblocks and barricades. How legal are they? Especially on a highway.
You know, for me, okay, it's more policy and administrative, and it's in the interest of trying to curb COVID-19. But I think there is a degree of unreasonableness with these barricades. For example, I mean, if we are talking about Kenyans struggling to eke a living, you're probably closing your shop in the CBD or waiting for the last customer at least probably to buy an item so that you can make your way home. And you can actually see Kenyans are rushing, not because nobody is driving leisurely on this road because they have all the time. Kenyans are conscious that I need to get home on time because I want to obey curfew rules. But I think there's a level of unreasonableness from the police that it's almost draconian, like it's a punishment. It's not facilitative. You know,
And
even
the roads, by the way, we've got a lot of roads that are under construction.
exactly.
So even
there's
if you wanted to
delay
move
as well.
home,
Exactly. So
so
there's
much
also
delay.
delay. So even in law, even when you say commit as an offense, say maybe a traffic offense, the police have the power to warn you or to caution you and tell you go but don't repeat. I have hardly seen that in our policing in this country. It's like you are just a criminal until proven otherwise. And this, for me, Bitok, to tie it to the state of the nation, raises a very fundamental question that I want to throw out there. And I've spoken to many people, and they're asking the question, Ekuru, do we really have a leadership in this country? This is something that Kenyans are waking up to every morning. Where are we going as a country? In any country that seeks to prosper, there has to be some strategic direction that you must chaperone your nation and your people to. And that's leadership. So the fundamental question really now today, do we have a leadership in Kenya when, for example, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya goes on national television and says, yes, we had a very good agenda, but it was abandoned. In other words, the deputy president was saying, we don't have leadership.
Yes.
Why would you lie to people that will do this to you, but then somewhere along the way, something else comes along and you follow that something? So there's no direction for this country. You know, even the way the police are behaving, I'm telling you, you know, leadership is like a value at home. It cascades downwards even to the smallest child, that they must know this is how we behave in our homes. So when the police see, for example, their bosses, their leaders out there not giving any direction, so the mwananchi kawaida struggling to go home becomes the victim. You know? In other words, by the way, tumerudi kwa shamba la wanyama.
The animal farm.
Yes.
Haya, kuna watu wanasema Nabii Ekuru azungumze. Nabii Ekuru zungumza, ulifanya unabii ya mambo ambayo ulisema itafanyika kuanzia mwaka 2018. Sasa yamekuja, the prophecies of Ekuru. Sasa Nabii, tuambie what is happening. Last week we had a court ruling. This week we had a court ruling. You can have Nabii azungumze. So let's just look very quickly at the CS positions and the CAS, that is CAS positions, and the CS positions were rendered illegal by the court ruling. Very quickly, and to take you, I mean, you are best placed to take us because I think you are the first person who raised the issues on the CAS positions as well, and so also the vetting of the CS.
Let me consult mine so that we are not. I hope people are watching, are looking at the screen.
And then also there is the issue of BBI.
We will come to BBI.
But let's start with that.
Yeah,
I think
let's start with the CAS position. So February 7th, 2018, we issued a comprehensive statement as an advisory, actually as a memorandum to Parliament. And we told Parliament, President Uhuru Kenyatta has every right to appoint a cabinet. And so we suggested to the vetting committee of Parliament that in your vetting you must look at a number of issues. Look at your role, and you can see all that. It's in the document. But the one I want to focus on, which for me I think we prophesized, was that President Uhuru Kenyatta, in collusion with the Public Service Commission, offended the Constitution of Kenya. Because the president, I remember watching his speech, he said that I have decided to introduce a new office in the public service called Chief Administrative Secretary. It's actually not his decision. That's where he went wrong in the first instance. What the president can do, and the law allows him, let's look at the Constitution as well. Article 132, sub-article 4, mandates the president, and it says he may create an office in the public service, but on recommendation from the Public Service Commission. So what he can do is, he can tell PSC, I want to create an office in the public service called Chief Administrative Secretary. That is his constitutional, that's the function of the president. Now what PSC needs to do, PSC then needs to go, so the key words there is on recommendation of PSC. Now that recommendation of PSC is not a power unto itself. PSC is again guided by the provisions of Chapter 15 relating to commissions, independent commissions and independent offices. And in particular, Article 249, which requires PSC to then go back to issues of constitutionalism, Article 10 of the Constitution, issues to do with transparency, accountability, public participation, equity, and all those things. In other words, PSC needed to go back to the people of Kenya and ask them the question. The President of the Republic of Kenya has asked to expand the executive by creating another element called Chief Administrative Secretary. And therefore, they need to take into account all manner of issues that come with it. Issues to do with funding, you know, whether there is a need for it, and therefore, based upon public participation as a principle in law, in the Constitution itself, as an item for governance, then it can now recommend to the president and say, I think after consultation, now you can go ahead and create this office in the public service. But more specifically, so that Kenyans can follow, I want us to refer to item number 9 in our memorandum to Parliament of February 7th. And in that item, we raise a couple of questions.
Whose memorandum is in?
This was our party memorandum, Thirdway Alliance Kenya memorandum to the vetting committee.
I think I can share it with you guys.
Parliament, yeah, you can share it.
You can look at it.
So if you look at that item number 9, where we're talking about creation of chief administrative secretaries, lacks transparency and ignored public consultation process, and therefore remains unconstitutional. Before I go into the specific, about 5 items that I raised there, you see, CAS is unconstitutional for 2 reasons. Number one, for want of procedure in the creation of that office by dint of Article 132, sub-Article 4 of our Constitution. That's one limb where chief administrative secretaries are being faulted. Number 2, and related to that, is that when you are appointing people into the cabinet, the president ought to have forwarded this name to Parliament for vetting. None of those people were vetted, including some ministers, Matiang'i, Ambassador Amina Mohammed, Omalua.
All the guys from the older...
from the previous cabinet were never vetted, because this is a new government. President Uhuru himself was actually vetted by the people of Kenya from 2013, when he transited from 2013 to 2017 administration. His vetting was at the ballot. So the vetting is an integral part of our constitutionalism. You know? So now, specific to the CRC, as Thirdway Alliance Kenya, we asked very fundamental questions. We raised the question of funding and the void this CAS is supposed to fill. What is this void they're supposed to fill? Who actually approved their creation? Because Public Service Commission received a letter today from the president, and the following day they said go ahead. First of all, that's a mistake number 1. So the idea of the funding, where was the money going to come from? Yeah, because remember we already had a budget, approved by Parliament. The second thing we raise is procedure and consultation followed. Which procedure and consultation was being followed in the creation of this? Justice Anthony Mrima, who, by the way, by coincidence, was actually our classmate together with Abraham Singoe, maybe just in the interest of disclosure. And we were not involved in that case at all. So both Abraham, myself, and Anthony Mrima are actually classmates, and we can say we were friends. So absolutely. I spoke about this before, even before I think he was transferred to the constitutional bench. I think at that time he was out of Nairobi. So we raised the question of procedure and consultation, and you can see it there from the screen. Then the idea of public participation, I've spoken about that. Increased wage bill, and maybe later on in the show, again we'll talk about this when again in September, we raise the question about how do we reduce the burden on Kenya. February we talked about this is increasing the wage bill on Kenyans. Ni kuwaongezea wa Kenya mizigo. And then of course, replication and conflict over duties. Let me tell you, the position of Chief Administrative Secretary was a recreation of the assistant ministers, as it were then, which was abolished. Remember during the Moi regime, then I think we have the Kibaki regime before the new constitution, we had a minister, assistant minister, and a permanent secretary. So what President Uhuru did actually in collusion with PSC, they just took us back to the KANU era. And Kenyans had said, what is all this? So yes, hiyo ndio utabiri wetu ilikuwa 7th February 2018 and it has come to pass.
Asante sana Nabii, lakini usichukue kazi yangu ya kuangusha. I don't know what are your thoughts on the same things, Dr. Abraham?
Yeah. You know, I think I completely concur with Dr. Ekuru. We have a challenge, and the challenge lies really in the independence of institutions. You know, Gerald, when we gave ourselves this constitution, it was based on certain assumptions.
Yes.
And the fundamental assumption was that we would be guided, you know, by the values and principles of this constitution at every level, whatever organ, you know, we were serving. We did not imagine that, for example, independent commissions would become an appendage of the executive.
That's true.
All right? We expected that there would be such a healthy interplay and interaction in the decision-making process so as to make it participatory and bring value to the people. Unfortunately, over the course of the implementation of this constitution in the last 10 years now, what we are seeing is an increasing capture, if you like, of institutions and subservience of institutions, to the executive branch, to an extent where an independent office, an independent commission takes instructions, an independent office that is authorized to give independent recommendations, whether it's the ombudsman, whether it's a public service commission, whether it's a national commission on human rights, whether it's the police service commission. All these institutions have become an appendage of the executive. And we are running into a situation, therefore, where the country is being ruled by executive fiat because there's very little challenge, to whatever decisions have been handed down by the executive. And so the problem we have with the institution of the CAS is precisely that problem. It flows from the fact that the Public Service Commission failed to do its job. As a matter of fact, the Public Service Commission is also guided not just by the Constitution, it actually has a statute, the Public Service Values and Principles Act, which was enacted in 2012. And part of that statute requires fair competition and merit as the basis of appointment and promotion. And so the question is, at what stage were these nominees for CAS subjected to a competitive and merit-based process? And there are certain criteria within the legislation that Public Service Commission is required to abide with or by, ensure diversity, ensure gender balance, ensure ethnic group that is disproportionately represented in the public service, that no ethnic group is disproportionately represented in the public service, that persons with disabilities are part of the matrix, all these criteria. And therefore, Gerald, I think the real fear that I have, which goes beyond this particular decision, is the fear that we have institutions that have been charged with such a fundamental aspect of implementing the Constitution, now becoming part and parcel of the executive. And that is not only eroding, eroding the gains we intended, eroding the freedoms, that we should be enjoying, and worse still, burdening Kenyans now, with the necessary burdens. You remember what the Salaries and Remuneration Commission just did with respect to, with respect to the county assemblies, members of the county assemblies allowances in the context of, adoption of BBI by county assemblies recently. We are basically...
Let's call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the bribery of MCAs.
I don't want to go there. I just want to focus really on this question at this point, right? So here you have you have an independent entity. You have an independent entity, okay? The Salaries and Remuneration Commission that is supposed to ensure sustainability of our salary, of our wage bill. Instead, what do? They give a recommendation that is complete, that flies in the face.
Understate capture.
Of that understate capture.
Right.
This is the problem that
They actually conspired to commit an offense known to law.
That I do not know. That I do not know.
Being very slippery. Arnold Maliba. You're talking the same thing. Yes. And also, as far as you know, the same thing. What are chances that actually the government will obey that court order? Because it has an history of throwing off court orders of the window.
Actually, I just want to do a round of responding to a few things they've actually said, and I noted out. To Ekuru, I know one thing. I'm a former GOK, and I still consult for GOK in other spaces.
You are a GOK, not once you are GOK, you are GOK.
Yeah, but one thing I know is that they've got a window of regularizing everything else. I know that in this government, you can actually make a decision, and you'll do the paperwork later on. In a government decision, in a government environment where sometimes they want to act like God, let there be, and there was. As in, so they do so all those documents you're saying, you can actually be surprised. Those guys either have already manufactured them, or they'll be manufacturing them as they head towards
Which
court.
documents are you referring?
You're talking about the consultation, the process that has to start from the president, from PSC going to the president, and everything else.
No, but on this particular one, Maliba,
Yeah.
with utmost respect,
Yeah.
the letter was received today, and yet tomorrow. So even if they manufacture, surely, I mean, come on, how?
But
How would they manufacture? In all fairness.
I know, but they are so good at walking backwards. We actually
Just in a day.
we actually are people who then would actually come up with a policy intervention, and then we decide why we needed it. Simply, sometimes we actually very procurement based. And when we talk about procurement based here, I'm not just talking about the scandals, of course, and the corruption in this country that works around that, but I'm also talking about me thinking of how I reward you, the money that comes around that. So I get you a job and then start thinking about how then I will justify why I'm paying you. I just needed to point out that. But then, of course, Abraham here has spoken about executive fiat. That's where we are. Sometimes you look at the president and how this country has been run, and you realize that sometimes Uhuru thinks that this country is a sole proprietorship and he is the owner.
He has a title.
As in the way he does decisions, a lot of times you actually.
Abraham is cringing.
I know he's his boss by extension.
Probably in agreement.
He's cringing in agreement.
Why are you misreading my body language?
Because
Yes, proceed, Maliba.
because you realize that if he had an opportunity, he will rule this country just through executive orders. He feels so constrained by the constitution that when he cannot get his way, he gets very angry. The only time you see the president very angry is that he cannot have his way around the constitution and the laws of the land.
And then chooses to ignore the laws.
So, and he gets angry, and in some cases, he actually has gotten to the extreme level where he ignores the law, breaks them with utter impunity, and he moves on. But I wanted to bring this conversation home.
Yeah.
And you know where the problem is? It's chapter 8.
Okay.
Chapter 8 of the Constitution is almost silent, at least in practice. You know, when we were restructuring our governance structure,
The legislature.
the legislature. When we were restructuring government, we did away with a lot of power from the presidency, and tried to center a lot of it within the legislative authority and gave it to parliament, knowing that since these guys are many, then they will actually provide checks and balances on the executive, for example. But parliament is the biggest problem we have here. When you speak about CSS, parliament said nothing, at least nothing to write home.
Yeah.
Everything we are complaining about. The president the other day, Arnold and Kimwarera, he made a decision on that. Now those guys have gone back to court. They're asking for, I think, 12 billion shillings.
11.4. Is it 11 point something?
Yes, so
And now Druge has been set against Nani.
So roughly,
Serious Rotich.
roughly, we are talking about 12 billion shillings, because somebody somewhere with a sole proprietorship mind and mentality woke up and just walked back. And sometimes when I look at this Aurora and Kimwarera thing, one of those things, because I am a practicing politician, and since I do a lot of documentation around that space, I have always had a feeling that probably this Aurora and Kimwarera money is what Jubilee used for campaigns in 2017. That is why the other side...
It is what it used.
So you look at it and you realize, you see, when they try to push it towards the deputy president, he's very angry and he fights back. And these guys are also, there's something he wants to say and he doesn't say. He probably knows and he's not very free to speak about it. Because the way they fight around that particular issue, it looks like this money really was what we really used in 2017 for campaigns. That said, on the issue of CSS, of course, for me, the biggest letdown was Parliament. And that's why I'm actually bringing in Chapter 8, that when it was actually put in, it was supposed to act as the safeguard. Those were the people's watchmen. But these guys have turned around. And that's why, for me, sometimes I think CDF was the original sin that killed Parliament. It was a good thing at that particular time. But along the way, I have told you about my late grandfather who told me that some sins, I'm struggling to get the right word, but he told me, but he told me that if one has never had sex, it's very unlikely that they will crave over it and everything else. But once they start, they can never stop. So once Parliament tested money,
speaking to Bishop, talk.
So for me, CDF.
I should not start.
So
In fact, I will not start.
Once Parliament tested the executive, the fruits that come with handling money in the administration of state, and this is the touch of money, it's become so difficult for them to actually be parliamentarians. It has become difficult for Parliament to actually just be the legislature it's supposed to be. So for us here, the biggest challenge we are having today, people have to complain and Parliament has to do nothing. As in sometimes they come off very helpless. I've seen senators like Oledama
Maliba,
coming
can
to join us.
Can I play devil's advocate to that point?
Please do.
So that you continue.
Yeah.
You see, this is just devil's advocate, pure.
Okay.
I'm not sure at this
You even
point.
said Satan deserves representation.
Of course, it was the first point that. Of course, it was the first point. Of course, it was the first point that we raised in the memorandum to Parliament. We actually reminded them of their role, the oversight role of the executive. But in this particular case of CASS, it never reached Parliament. So was Parliament actually afforded an opportunity? I would say no. But maybe there's something else they could have done.
They have the opportunity, for example, injecting Treasury not to release any money, because at the end of the day, when we talk about budgeting and how you spend money, where is the money allocated? Who allocates budget?
Yeah.
It's Parliament.
But parliamentarians, some of them have confessed, Maliba, that they are just cows, so they follow.
All right. There's a comment for you, Arnold.
Yes.
This is from Mesha Kodet. They're saying, Arnold Maliba, why are some of you behaving like you are not aware that this country was given to Uhuru as a birthday present? He was given with the level of impunity, and the likes of Dr. Ekuru rubber stamped that. I don't know if it was granted. But I want also to get some views from Dr. Juang. And he's saying there's enough blame to go around in Kenyan problems. There are those who are blaming the Kenyans who voted for Jubilee. They can also be blamed for supporting Handshake with Jubilee for more than 3 years. Handshake is not good for the governance of this country, but great is a ceasefire tool. So they're saying those guys who are saying, like Odedo is saying, you guys gave Uhuru the country. They are now with Uhuru.
But so they should see, for example, I think maybe just to respond to the substantive issue raised by Arnold. First of all, CDF today as we speak, and I think for me, it is a correction we need to make almost immediately, Bitok. CDF as it is today is unconstitutional, is unlawful, and is irregular. The functions of CDF were long transferred to the county government. CDF is one big corruption scandal in this country because the executive is allowing members of parliament to use these funds for their own campaign too, because the same government wants to go into slumber. So let's just be clear. CDF is unconstitutional today. It's unlawful, it's irregular. Those functions were actually transferred to the county government a long time ago. So CDF ought to be killed immediately.
Okay.
So just to finish what actually my submission, the point of the CDF was very basic, that at the time we introduced CDF, of course, we were struggling to decentralize and we were fighting against that the imperial system we had at that particular time. So it was good at that particular time. What we didn't know is that the long-term effect of some policies, sometimes you might not be able to tell. So somehow you realize that ever since MPs touched money, and realize that once you touch executive money, once you become an appendage of the executive, you are, as in, there's tested blood, and they've never wanted to walk back. Finally, on the same thing, he spoke about replication. I think replication has been a hallmark of Jubilee's, the Jubilee administration throughout. You have got Vision 2030 Delivery Secretariat, VDS. You come up with PDU. You have got Youth Fund, Women Enterprise Development Fund, PWD's fund. You come up with Uwezo Fund. As in, for everything that existed, and if you cannot replicate something like the National Economic and Social Council, you just kill it and keep quiet. So for them, if they came in and felt like they didn't like a certain structure within government, they just introduced another one, a parallel one. And at that particular time, the argument was so easy that the more the merrier. That's not, government is never in the business of replications. So they can come up with a lot of justifications and a lot of stories. You have got a National Youth Council, you refuse to fund it, you come up with a National Youth Commission. you are unable to
To
fund a
repeat the
council
same
that is
things in
existing in law, but you are coming up. So for them, it was about coming up with everything new to compete what is already existing.
Okay.
So for them, that's how they've been working. But the long and the short of this is that one of those things I think BBI, if BBI for me was worth, and I've said that on this show before, was that probably we will need to look at how we strengthen parliament.
Okay.
But how do you strengthen already willing, participants
Willing cows.
in criminal law? But anyway, I think the bottom line is this. We just gave a job to very incompetent people.
Okay, we accept that. Anyway, rolling back the conversation a bit, I'll start with you, Singhoe. Have you been jabbed?
I received the
Sputnik or AstraZeneca?
the first AstraZeneca jab.
Okay. All right. So where are you going to get the second dose? Now we are out of doses. Well, they're saying they're going to bring in another cocktail.
That's the dilemma. But if we could just go back on that discussion, and again the discussion regarding the state of the nation and the anxiety that envelops our land, especially in terms of livelihoods and the economy, there is an imperative upon the state to accelerate the vaccination program.
Okay.
What is said is that there appears to be no clarity, no clear program that tells Kenyans that in the next 6 months, for instance, we will have vaccinated 20 million of you, and we will then have attained, some kind of herd immunity. Instead, we are being treated with these sort of half-hearted kind of information to the effect that that a vaccine like AstraZeneca is not going to be to be imported into the country. I mean that I think is serious dereliction of duty, and I think it just underlines the fact that in our fight to mitigate the coronavirus pandemic as a country, I think we have failed already. What we have seen is the use of law and order tools to try to manage and control the population, but really on the on the health side, despite the initial thefts that took place, especially under the watch of KEMSA. We have hardly seen any action in terms of bringing perpetrators of the COVID haste, to book. We saw just this week, the president of Malawi dismissing various ministers and heads of institutions who have been accused of pilfering COVID funds. In Kenya,
we reward them.
It appears as if the COVID millionaires and their collaborators, and the perpetrators of it have instead been rewarded. And so, and because of the failure of accountability at that stage, the entire program has been, it's been taken under. Basically, it's been taken to the dark side. Nobody knows what is being planned, because of the fear of accountability. Yeah. So there is no engagement. There is no clear public engagement. We do not know at what stage new vaccines are going to be brought. We saw the other day, for example, a vaccine that has been approved in various countries, in Europe, associated with the Russian Russian government. A vaccine that has gone through the approval processes through our own institutions here, basically, being banned, and its importation, and its use being banned, and so you see a lot of arbitrariness, and you see less and less of clarity, planning, coherence, openness in the execution of the of programs around COVID pandemic.
Okay.
What is shocking is that our own government has approved 7 vaccines, but 7 of them have been approved. I mean, the ones that are recommended by WHO. But imagine, I think let's be honest here. It's the entrepreneurs that have actually captured the situation. And they have captured the situation because entrepreneurs in this country do not work alone. They work with government operatives. So government is a shareholder in this entrepreneuring. And that's why you don't see the Johnson & Johnson here. You don't see the Sputnik here. You don't see the Pfizer. You don't see the Chinese one. You don't see all those others vaccines. In other countries, all the vaccines that have been approved, recommended by WHO, are actually on the table. And you are asked the question, which one do you want? You know, we got the AstraZeneca because it's the cheapest in terms of many issues, logistics, transportation, storage. And all that. You know, it's not necessarily the best. So we're actually getting the lowest of the lowest. Okay. But otherwise, we could actually, and this just speaks to a very big question in our country. The leadership of this country does not really care about Kenyans. It cares about itself. You know? Yes. And because if they really cared about Kenyans, even their own electorate, President Uhuru Kenyatta was voted by about upwards of 8 million Kenyans. So really, even just as a thank you to the people who actually voted for you, at least we should be seeing some 80 million vaccines around, so that you see, at least for the people who put me in office to run this government,
saying thank you.
Let me just
say,
for the birthday present. You know, but that's really the fundamental question. So we really have a leadership that is not so much concerned. And it also brings into question other departments of government. For example, I know in the office of the president we have a department called Disaster Management and Preparedness, which has a budgetary allocation in billions of Kenya shillings. So where is this department? If they cannot come in handy during this pandemic, which for me is really a disaster, which is ravaging and killing Kenyans, what is the use of that department in government? It's just another mzigo we need to reduce.
Probably you really need to lower your expectations. In disaster management in this country, as in we are a country that we put our sons and daughters to war. We take them to the battlefront. And when they need us most, we cannot send them air support services. Close air support service. We couldn't send our boys in El-Ade. And we cannot run away from these things. It's important that we keep on saying these things so that people also hear. When our children were being killed in Mandera, in Garissa, it took 6 hours to actually just get a response unit from Nairobi going by road. But we have got a lot of... so when it comes to disaster...
We have military planes, we have airstrip in Garissa.
They could be available for any other person. So this country has taken its children to war and abandoned them there. Do you really think they care about a disease that has come to them?
Yeah, but I think I'm beginning to see sort of... and to worry about what I see as, inept response. And I'm beginning to imagine that perhaps there is method in the madness. Because the pandemic appears to be serving certain political ends, because it appears to be lowering civic engagement and civic participation, because it appears to be disorganizing, political engagements, so to speak, because it appears to be emboldening the law and order sector of the society, because it appears to be strengthening rule by decree, including getting permissive decisions from the court. Judge Mrima actually did say that even though the decision on the appointment of CAS is unconstitutional, he went ahead and said, pending the pandemic, that basically he suspended the orders. And so because the government appears to be getting a carte blanche, thanks to the pandemic, why should it end?
So they want it to continue.
Why this is a gift from God.
Why should it stop?
Why should it end?
All right. Perhaps it might also help us fix the 2022 elections.
Yes.
This is the point, and
extend.
Because the point that I think we need to engage with is government leveraging on crisis?
Yeah.
Method in the madness.
In fact, is it inviting crisis? All right.
As a bedmate.
As a bedmate.
All right. Very quickly, Ekuru, on something to do with DCI, so that we move to the other main topics. I was trying to roll back the conversation because I wanted us to eat a bit on the main meat. So we roll back to DCI. DCI responds to Citizen TV investigative piece on accessibility of firearms to civilians, and they link the police to the madness of selling the arms to civilians. And DCI came guns blazing. In fact, they have now even withdrawn. I understand they have withdrawn security from Royal Media Services. I mean, and this is coming and saying, you guys should not have come out and exposed us. You should have made us part of this. Like, let's come and work as a team and investigate together. I mean, how does it make you feel about an institution that's supposed to protect you as a Kenyan? When it comes crying out loud.
You know, it is a sad state of affairs. And Kinoti is one police officer I really have tremendous respect for, especially during his time back in the days when he was a prosecutor. He was a very good prosecutor, by the way. One of the very rare police prosecutors who used to nail criminals back in the days. But I was a bit disappointed actually that he issued such a statement because at least it is a catch-22 situation. We would have expected that Kinoti, being the investigator, will now have delved deeper into this issue and say, let me investigate first before it came out into the open. Because now, how can we then trust DCI now to investigate, assuming what royal media, put out there was actually say a lie. Then we'll have expected DCI to come out and investigate, and after investigation, then come out and say, we have investigated the report by Royal Media Services, and this is our finding. But even before that, he's already defending the police without any investigation. So actually, already is bipartisan. We cannot trust his partiality. Actually, he's not impartial anymore. So it's just it's probably part of the whole cartel about this government. I mean, if government has no direction, has no ethos and values within which to effect its work, then I think anybody and everybody in government can do as they please. So for me, I saw that statement and I thought, wow, this is very unfortunate.
All right, Abraham, what did you think?
I think there was no reason for denial. Like Ekuru says, I think this was a great opportunity for introspection. I think it's common knowledge that firearms, in the hands of the police or under the custody of the police, are somehow find themselves in the hands of civilians. Some of not just civilians, criminals. I mean, we've had incidents of this nature on several occasions. And so what the investigative journalist was trying to do was to actually demonstrate first how cheap the whole process is. I mean, she didn't even have to spend that much to do this. And then just to also demonstrate that you don't need to be anybody extraordinary to do this. I think what the story shows is that Kenyans are in perilous danger. That, as a matter of fact, criminal gangs can be able to hire, arms from the police, etc., and deploy it to our harm. And so, as a police force, I thought what the leadership should have done would have been to introspect and to look at its systems and to look at its to look at its offices and to look at its rules and begin then to create mechanisms to address this kind of a problem. But living in denial, I think, is rather unhelpful. And trying to then clamp down on those kind of voices or chill the freedom of expression, I think, is even more disturbing.
It differs at
Actually, you have given them the opportunity.
Absolutely.
They should have studied that report, looked at the veracity of that report, and then go deep down somewhere and start investigating, even go undercover before. But this reactionary maybe speaks to the fact that indeed maybe
it must be guilty. All right.
Sorry.
I think
Arnold, very quickly.
I think Kinoti is just behaving like this government. He's I'm actually very surprised that we are surprised that he responded that way. You see, this government loves to respond to challenges by anger.
Governance by crisis.
These guys are always angry at anything. You challenge them. If you ask questions, they retort back angrily. There's no day they actually are going to welcome anyone's suggestion or a challenge by saying, we will look at it, we will. Unless you're bringing in a loan, they are not very happy with you. So for them, I think sometimes Article 10 is just a suggestion, especially when it comes to public participation.
It's a decoration.
It is a suggestion that they really don't want to be. It's an inconvenience. So I'm really even surprised that we are really
Surprised.
talking about.
You should not be surprised that we are surprised.
Because I didn't even expect that we would actually
I think
get
we
the
must
whole
talk about
vision.
it because I mean to do otherwise would be for us to have gone into apathy completely. At a minimum, we need to be able to vote.
I think you've given up, Arnold.
Talking about,
I think you've surrendered.
talking about it
Arnold
is
has
important, but that we are surprised that they reacted that way. It's actually funny because
The issue is the surprise.
that is this.
It means expectations. So
my
you're
biggest
telling us to
issue-
lower
yes.
expectations.
Yes.
But that's why, Arnold, I think we need to tackle it. We need to tackle these issues.
Yeah.
We need to put it out there. And Kenyans need to know we are not stupid. We are aware what you guys are doing. You know, it's wrong. I for me, what I hate the most about us Kenyans sometimes is accepting, taking ourselves to a state of apathy. Let's not do that. Because this country, by the way, belongs to all of us in equal measure. These people who are making very bad decisions on our behalf are a tiny minority. And we are the ones who have actually cushioned them for the longest time. To the extent that, and true to your statement, that they think Kenya is a sole proprietorship.
Yeah.
So we need to tell them, no, Kenya si yenu ama si ya mama yenu. I'm sorry, but
So
not.
just to finalize on that,
All right, please.
I think what Citizen did in Purity was very basic, to just tell us that if you have got the motive, you have got the means, and you have the opportunity, you can always get a gun.
Yeah.
But I saw them trying to poke holes into it. You see, Citizen did not want to commit a crime. So they were not in a hawakukuwa na haraka so that I think that it took a year. Those kind of arguments are actually, in my opinion, quite childish. Because were they looking for a gun to commit a crime? No, they just wanted to demonstrate. So depending on the time they had, the resources they had, so we cannot even go poking holes into it. Like he has said, probably what we needed was DCI saying, thanks for this. We're going to look into it. We will go underground and also see how to work out. But they came out very angry. They appear like they are threatening everybody. There's a lot
Thrashing, actually.
In fact, I was expecting, as a chief investigator, Kinoti should have said, okay, thank you for this report. We have taken these guns to our forensic laboratory. We've looked at them. We looked at the serial numbers of the gun, because every gun must have a serial number. These were never manufactured by the government of Kenya. They are probably manufactured by some whatever. I would have expected that we now go technical and expert, because Kenya government has got all these technical expertise to actually even the munitions we use. You can tell where are they manufactured. Is it Russian? Is it American, British, or is it from our factory in Eldoret? So this is what I was expecting him as a chief investigator to actually.
All right, that's why we cannot fight wars in Kapedo. Anyway, moving on quickly to.
Do you have to bring my village into this?
But we can't. And when there's a guy who was saying, "Mokuja tulimane tujue nani ameshindwa."
his profile here live on the show.
There's a guy from Kapedo who said, the government should not end this match. Like, we need to rest knowing was won. Tulimane tujue. All right. So now let's move quickly to the CJ interviews. Last week we were subject to a lot of entertainment by the panel. So interviews, we had Murgor, who had a bit of arrogance coming in and saying, I don't need his job. We had Marete, that is now the CJ for Kenyans. We had Marete who came in, gave us a lot of comedy, something to laugh about and all that. And the more you looked at it, you could say like it was a comic relief on the pains of Kenyans. Like it was just, okay, you guys, let's open up this thing. You guys come, we entertain each other, we go home. Now, the other drama is the Aukot has stopped the process of actually making decisions on this, on the interviews that have been done.
Running the interviews.
The interviews are running, but the vetting process, they cannot make a decision past the interviews. That's what I saw on the newspapers yesterday. Anyway, another thing is another question that some Kenyans asked yesterday is, why do we have to wait until a CJ retires so that we can start the process of looking for another one? So let's look at the interviews in isolation, and then now the second question is, why can't we have a replacing CJ before the other one retires? We start with the interview. I'll start with you,
Yeah.
Ekuru.
So on the interviews, first of all,
What did you make of
it's
it?
a misnomer for the High Court to say stop the vetting of these chief justices, but let's go on with the interviews. The vetting is not an event on its own. It's part of the process. So if you are allowing the interviewing to go on, for somebody to be in the list to be vetted, for me it is nonsensical to say that yes, you continue the interviews, pick whoever you want to put in the list, but don't vet them. Then what is the point of allowing this process? Because vetting is part of the process. Okay, so that I find a bit very comical. Actually, that is what is comical, not the interview itself. So I think the interviewing is, for me, with tremendous respect, the list was out there. You know the reason why everybody made into that list, and this is what most Kenyans do not know.
8 applicants.
Yeah. The reason everybody made into that list, even within the legal fraternity we believe there are some people who should not have made in that list, is because of a court case that was taken to court back when there was a search for the Chief Justice during Maraga's just before Maraga, after Willie Mutunga. Justice Juang and others went to court and actually insisted, got orders that if anybody applies, however checkered your past or your character is, you should be given an opportunity to participate at the interview so that whatever issues may be there about you could then be raised at the interview, that it should not be prejudicial. And that's why we found Marete on the seat, entertaining Kenyans about himself, insisting that his wife should be his principal assistant, and that the state must pay his wife, and all those kind of things. So the interview had some serious fellows. I mean, I saw Justice Aukot. I mean, Senior Counsel Ngatia make their case. Mother Kaome and others. So there are some serious candidates, but also there are some that I think were a little bit unserious. I think the last one today is Aliciano. Yes. Aliciano was a former commissioner with the CKRC, the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission, during the Yashpal guy. It's common knowledge that he used to be like an informer, I don't know, to the Moi regime. At some point even abandoned the Bomas process draft and refused to be those who participated. So there are all manner of things. So, but I think, yes, and to your point, I agree with you. We shouldn't wait when a CJ leaves office. After he left office, that's when we start the interviews. We should have started these interviews before, when Maraga is actually in office, so that by the time he is leaving, he is actually handing over to the new Chief Justice. So who will do the handover now? We are not going to recall Maraga from his retirement to come and hand over, because, it's a transition thing. They even ought to maybe meet for a week, walk the new CJ through, the structures of the judiciary, maybe even present him a report, his own assessment report, an exit report, something like that. So that's how elegantly it's done in other jurisdictions. Okay. Way before you get to know who the successor of that office is.
All right, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Jambo, bunge la mwananchi.
Jambo sana. This is Kipele Arab Koke from Rio.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And about wasalimia waheshimiwa.
Masalimika.
Sasa about the issue, the issue of DCI defending the Road and Police Service.
Yeah.
It was not in order coming out in what seems to be threatening the media services and whatever. I was expecting him, or I expected him to come out after the Kenya Army officer based at Langata and the prison officer was based in Wajir TK prisons, and the AP officer was caught around Upper Urubak, trying to arrest a border, trying to get money from that guy. I was expecting him to come out at the end or say anything about those officers. It seems that those officers, what can they not do to get money? Because these guys had handicapped, they were armed, and they were not on duty. Meaning, what can they not prevent them from airing out the guns? So, this should be clear.
avoid threatening the media services, because these media services are highlighting us on what's happening in day-to-day activities in the country. Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Thank you so much, sir. Have a very good day and enjoy your weekend. Don't leave the broadcast, please stay on the broadcast. Tuendelee kuzungumza pamoja. That's a good question.
You know this succession thing of the CJ, just before Abraham comes in.
Yes.
Let's liken it to political succession in the country. You know, it is just one way, in my view, that our organization is trying to undermine one arm of government. Because otherwise, we could say the same thing. Let's wait for President Uhuru to finish his term in 2022, then we hold the elections.
That could sound very nice.
I think it will be a very nice thing.
You will not be having any influence on...
Exactly. So, but you see, during, for example, now his term,
transition, yes.
We still have the election. He's still holding on as the president of the country until he hands over either to Ekuru Aukot or Abraham Singoe in 2022. That is what is called smooth transitioning. You wait for the new incomer into the office, you hand over properly. But we don't see that in the judiciary, and we have seen it now successfully, even during Mutunga time. Same thing now with Maraga. I mean, for me, it's not a very elegant way of doing things.
Okay. All right.
I think my comments, and I agree with Ekuru by and large. But let me start by first, I think, commending what has taken place in terms of process, even if it's not as perfect as we want it to be. I mean, you must commend the Judicial Service Commission for at least trying to demonstrate openness and transparency and public engagement, even during a period when public engagement is not a priority. They have developed various tools for engaging the public, including a handbook, just to make the public understand the process. That is in the spirit, of our constitution. So I must really commend them. I agree with the Ekuru that, if you look at the candidates for CJ, I mean, I think it's a bit unfortunate because I don't think that those candidates necessarily represent the best that the profession could have offered. All right, and part of it, part of the reason for the limited interest lies, I think, in the sense that members of the profession are starting to get, which is that what is the use of joining an institution that is going to be intimidated and harassed, and will not be allowed to do its job by, a resurgent executive. All right. If you see what Judge Maraga went through as Chief Justice, if you see what happened in the context, or what has happened in the context of the refusal on the part of the president to appoint, the 41 judges of appeal, among others. I mean, and then the refusal of the neglect from obeying judicial decisions, all of those things go towards undermining the integrity of the judiciary, and it affects the desire of people to serve within an institution of that nature. When you look at the candidature, and the conduct of interviews, I think it's been illuminating by and large. We have seen some members of the Judicial Service Commission truly acquitting themselves. The kind of questions that they have asked some of the candidates, has been really impressive. When you look at some of the questions posed by Judge Majanja, for example, and the exchange between him, for example, between him and Judge, Nduma Nderi, between him and even Judge Aukot, in terms of the law of prescription, the law of adverse possession in relation to land, and the kind of decisions that have come out of the Court of Appeal, you actually begin to understand the mind of this judge. But again, when you look at the totality of some of the questions that have been presented to the candidates, you again see the gaps in terms of the competence gap, of some of the members of the Judicial Service Commission, and the fact that some of them needed to do a lot more homework to make sure that we get the best You know, we get the best information from these candidates, and we know them because Gerald, you know, this interview is for the Chief Justice of Kenya. Yes. This is a very sensitive position. I feel, for example, that some of the questions posed to Senior Counsel Ngatia, and the level of probing, I don't think we know Ngatia more than now after the interview than we knew him before. Because really, I don't think he was subjected to a rigorous process of engagement. I don't think we understand him sufficiently to be able to entrust him with this responsibility. I'm not really sure, you know. And yet you see, on the other hand, some of the candidates truly being subjected to some, you know, very probing.
They did a serious dig up on the past.
A greater regard. So I feel like JSC has tried, but there are still gaps in its armor. Okay. The court, the case before the court, which has, has issued conservatory orders, arises from the membership of, Mugenda, as well as the representative of the Public Service Commission. The argument being that Mugenda already holds several offices in the country. And yet the law is very clear that as a state officer you can only hold one office, etc. And secondly, why is she the one chairing rather than the DCJ? You know, and it raises again the issues around transition. You know, because naturally it should be the CJ who's chairing the entire. So there are still serious issues around the institutionalization of JSC that we need to look at going forward.
All right, Arnold, the same question to you, and again, there's another question that I think an issue that is raised about the is it partial treatment of different interviewees. A lot of people actually complained that Ngatia was pampered. I mean, he was on the laps like a baby, and he was being pampered by the interviewing commission. There's also the other accusation that we could already be having a seed in the minds of those who decide things in this country. I don't know what your feeling is.
I want to hold faith and hope that GSC will still will prove me right and not wrong, because if the outcome in Mutunga's how Mutunga came to office and even how Maraga came in, it almost resembled what the Catholics, a mantra within the Catholic world. They say that whoever goes to the conclave, a cardinal, as in whoever goes to the conclave while he's already a pope, he comes back while he's a cardinal. That many times when you see how people get into the Sistine Chapel to choose the pope, outside here people will start talking, it looks like it will be Ekuru, it looks like it will be Abraham, but they say normally the person who goes in there up high there, if you enter the Sistine Chapel as a pope, in quote, as in you look like you're the presumptive, normally you come back as by the time the white smoke goes up, you come out as a cardinal. And that is what happened in Mutunga's case for most of us. There were guys who already looked like they were going to actually pass. So, and then Maraga showed up. We also didn't expect him. So I am hoping that probably that tradition will actually move on. Because for the first time I actually saw sponsored hashtags celebrating a candidate.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that. And it looked like one candidate was being celebrated, almost worshipped by the interviewing panel, where there was a lot of flowering around it and not very hard questions. You know, he came in already a pope. It's my prayer that by the time
he doesn't leave a pope,
he will actually go outside as a cardinal, because there are so many issues that we need to deal around with that. So around the politics of that is that it speaks to, again, how Jubilee has really run amok. I'm talking about the political class within Jubilee. They have infiltrated LSK. If LSK is actually dying, it is because of this particular administration. Because they're always pulling sides, sponsoring.
Should invite Javi here to come and answer that question.
Because I can tell you,
should come in next. I'll pull him
if
in
you see all the fights that are being fought at the society, they're actually controlled from political homes and political offices. Those are the guys who are actually financing candidates, bringing in their own people. These guys are literally putting their hands everywhere. It's not just about putting their hands into the till, ensuring that our exchequer is not safe. as in they've run amok and they're everywhere. The same thing you actually are seeing in JSC. We saw we have got a DCJ, and then there is Mugenda there, courts around there. Courts have actually been intimidated. I've heard these guys talk about this process not being able to attract talent. Again, the office of the CJ and judiciary largely starts to look like IEBC. It's a career graveyard for so many people. That once you show up in here and you try to stand your ground and become your own man or woman, then we have to go back to a place when we saw you as a child, probably urinating along the road. There's something you did somewhere. So we're going to actually bring all those up. So again, I'm going back to the political class that has actually run amok, that they want to go everywhere. And every time, like Bitok, if you're going to say something on this show, then they will actually come in and try to teach you a little fear of God by just ensuring that you don't sleep at peace, and there are a few things that actually keep you at night waiting. So there's the political side of it, but there has been a tradition that was established through these processes. We're going to the third one.
Political bit.
Yeah. So just a little bit as before he comes in, we saw how Maraga was actually frustrated. Not just Maraga, but the judiciary. They are being revisited. And I'm thinking this is the epitome of revisiting. The budget's done away with. And I'm actually happy that Abraham is here. You know, because I know you're a man of God, you know that German preacher who talked about they came for Jehovah's Witnesses, they came to where they came back, they came for the Jews and everybody else. And then, you know, while all this madness was going on, his arm of this particular cake sometimes supported, even if it was half-heartedly or they were very silent. And finally now the chicken have come home to roost for them too. The same games that were being played elsewhere are now being used against them. You see how some decisions are made, very funny decisions made by the president, and now for the first time I actually saw the deputy president coming out, and he looked like a sad person. You know how he looked on Citizen? That is exactly how Kenyans.
He looked like a sad person. He was a sad person.
As in, I don't know that he was sad or he was trying to look like he was sad. But for the first time I saw the face he had. That is what so many Kenyans are. But if you look at the
face of betrayal,
the face of betrayal, as in, you can actually. This is a man who has seen actually fear of God. As in, Uhuru has really inflicted a little bit of that. So you see that, and that is what so many Kenyans actually feel. Yes. He asked when we started the show if there are any promises Jubilee has actually made that are being implemented. You look at young people, and because most of my life, the last 10 years, I've worked for and with young people around state. In 2013, they promised 13 promises in their pledges. They only did 1.5. Out of the 13 pledges made to young people, just 1.5 was done. This time round, they ran away from making youth pledges. They got very clever. If there are people who really have suffered under this regime, actually young people, yet in 2013, the mantra was analog versus digital. It was about young people who understand and feel the others, and Raila and his team who were clueless and were not in touch with young people. They literally flew to power on the wings of young people. But when they got there, they left them behind. We would argue and say, there is no young person. Even Kibaki, who is much older, had young people in his cabinet. There was Ababu, there was Kingi, people who were under 35. Here we were told there was Rashid, of course. I don't know how much he represented young people. Everywhere, and of course the requirements to become a PS becomes very difficult unless you studied very early. On average, you need to be at least 42. The average Kenyan, ile njia yetu ya kusoma ya kawaida, before you can become, if you look at the requirements, before you become a PS. So, my question was, exactly how now do you guys feel that you joined in the lynch mob that was dealing with us? And now part of that
the lynch has turned.
that cartel has turned, and now you are feeling that. Okay. I would really love to see how that, when DP comes here, please ask him. And Abraham is here.
Abraham can speak meanwhile. Anyway, good morning. We have someone on the line. Jambo. Bungala mwanyenchi.
Jambo sana.
Habari asubuhi.
Good morning. Salama sana.
Niambie dadi.
Salama sana. Say hi to Doctors Ekuru and Korir.
Tumesalimika bro.
Asante.
And of course Maliba. Now, Very quickly, let me make my point there.
Please.
I have to say to start with that has been a very refreshing conversation.
I appreciate.
Albeit very somber when you look at the state of our country. Now, my point, number one, let us look at the issue of the police and the roadblocks. Yeah, I say that at this particular point, I think we need the functioning and operational independence of our police, and I don't think that is going to be achieved without with our police service, national police service, being run under the Harambee House, the office of the president, and under the Ministry of Interior. Secondly, I think it is also time we started looking at, can we also have autonomy in terms of finances of our police? Because if you have to go for money from the executive, just by the same way we are saying about our MPs and whatever, these guys cannot be independent. So part of the problem, I think, is that lack of operation and functional independence of our police. Then number two, when it comes to the issues of the illegal cabinet, part of it, and of course outrightly unconstitutional positions of the chief administrative secretaries, the question that I would want Dr. Ekuru and Koril to respond to is how this can be cured. Is there a cure, especially for the CSs, now that we know they are outrightly illegal? And then the third issue is the use of COVID and what the panelists, earlier on said that we are looking like we are using law and order tactics to bring about, observance of these measures. And I want to say that this part of this comes from the attitude that has been adopted by this president, whereby this president has shown that he has a penchant for bullies, For President Uhuru, if you are his appointee and you are seen to be using, very high-handed, and you are seen to be using a lot of high-handedness, he mistakes that to mean performance, That's why you have people like Matiang'i, Karanja Kibicho, these guys are having such a big profile in this administration because these are people who have mastered the art of being bullies and, using high-handedness. The same case with Magoha.
Yes.
That is the problem, I think, partly. The other thing, when it comes to our parliament, and I think this is where the problem is, I think basically many of our problems, the ones that have been very well captured by the panelists, emanate from the fact that we have a dead parliament. And part of the reason why we have this dysfunction of parliament or this ineffective parliament is because every person in that parliament is a businessman or a businesswoman. They look at things from the perspective of, transactions. If it makes business sense, it doesn't matter how illegal it is. It doesn't matter how much it offends the constitution, how much it undermines human rights. If it makes business sense to them, then they are in it. If there is no business sense in it, then they are not for it. It doesn't matter how much that decision or a move goes towards, contributing to the welfare of the citizenry. Many of our parliamentarians spend their time looking for tenders, taking government operatives for tenders and whatnot. The other thing is, so these issues of our parliament, I think it is a very big mistake to have either our county assemblies managing money or even our legislators managing money. Their role are three major ones: representation, oversight, and legislation. The issue of them managing money in implementing projects doesn't arise. But unless we get it right with our parliament, whereby we have men and women who are concerned about the welfare of the citizens, and they are not business people, then we are going to have a problem. Lastly, I think I have said that the last time I called in this show, I said that I am more worried about the future of this country more than I am worried about its present today. And it is for this reason. The culture that President Uhuru has promoted in this country is a very dangerous culture. And it doesn't appear to me like people, in quotes, the front runners in 2022. I don't have a person that I can place my faith in that is going to come and deal with this culture. It's a culture of impunity. It is a culture of delegitimizing institutions. It is a culture of the executive wanting to be in charge of everything. And we know where that has taken this country. So I am very worried that post-2022, we are going to be left with a very bad culture that will, can only take us deeper into the hole. I thank you, Bitok, and the panelists. have a nice weekend.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for calling in. We appreciate it. There's a question from Dr. Juang. Dr. Juang was asking, I'll also ask them if JSC takes someone from Mount Kenya. In JSC, there will be 5 people from Mount Kenya out of 9. Is that constitutional? Asked on regional balancing in the JSC. Tell them what is, that is my question. The balance within JSC and balance on the Chief Justice is automatic member of JWC or 5. So 5 out of 9 from one region. Are there concerns on IBC airing and political games, especially with UDA? I think that's a question for the next round as we finish. But the issues on regional balances, or regional balancing, Ekuru.
Well, that's the truth. I mean, it has always been like that. In fact, I think under the JSC Act, if I'm not wrong, it's a requirement actually. It's both regional and ethnic balancing. It is in the law. So I'm sure that has to be taken into account whoever is a front runner, because currently we have what? I really hate to speak of an institution like the judiciary in the context of tribe and regions, because this is where we expect actually people to give their best professionally and meritoriously. Unfortunately, this country of ours, we've been cultured to think in terms of tribe, and that's because we don't really offer services to Kenyans as Kenyans. We want to celebrate when one of our own is out there, even though it does not really benefit you. It's a good feeling, but it's a good feeling for nothing, because at the end of the day, really, it doesn't really benefit you. Like, I may keep on challenging, for example, my Mudhoniwas out there. When there was celebration that one of our own is president of the Republic of Kenya today. Look at the pandemic. Does it choose whether you are Luo, Kikuyu, Turukana, Luya, or Kalenjin?
No, it doesn't.
It is killing all of us in equal measure. The decision makers, whether they are from your tribe or not, depends on whether we are all comfortable in this country or not. So this nonsense of always saying that we must have one of our own is unfortunate. But this is our culture. Personally, I don't subscribe to it. I wouldn't care less even if we had only Luos or Kikuyus in the Supreme Court, so long as they are delivering justice for Kenyans and they are able to do it professionally. Because we are a professional organization. We are trained professionally. There are certain ethos and values that we must adhere to as a profession. And that's what must guide us in dispensing justice as the bench. So it's unfortunate we have to think about regional and this ethnic balancing, but yes, that is the law also. So we have to go by the law.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I think justice must be done, but it must also be seen to be done. And so it is very clear that one must, from the perspective of ensuring that inclusive and social justice is done, it is important that JSC's composition be representative. There are enough members of the legal profession and other affiliated professions that can serve in JSC, from wherever part of the country. And in fact, if the appointing authorities were to be fair, there should have been a little more, regional balance than there is right now. But there is a question that I don't really want to run away. The question posed by Arnold around consistency in terms of values. He avers that previously politicians allied to, let's say, the deputy president appeared to have winked or even celebrated when the state was running roughshod on civil liberties, and yet they are now on the receiving end of that rough edge of the state, and I think this is something that we all have to be very clear about, that either we stand on the side of values at all times, or we don't, and I'm one person who I have always taken a fairly critical view of the state, even though, I am in government. When the state does well, it must be commended. When the state fails, no matter the position that I'm in, I should be able to speak out, my disappointment in relation to that issue. So we saw the state, for example, leverage on, the Westgate bombing and the Garissa, terror attack, to come up with, police, with security amendment laws, that were basically, it has completely changed the way we do policing. It has emboldened the surveillance state. It has cut down quite a number of freedoms. We saw the state come down quite heavily against civil society, for example, refuse to implement another legislation, the NGO Coordination Act, that has been the Public Benefits Act, that is still in our books, but has not been implemented to date. All right? And some of us have spoken about those issues, notwithstanding that we're in government. Unfortunately, I think the political players, even on our side of the divide, haven't spoken as consistently, or as loudly about these issues. And unfortunately, this is now coming back to bite them. The lesson to draw is you must stay on the side of truth, on the side of values. All the time.
Abraham, why they have not spoken?
Yeah.
Because I think for the first time in Kenya, we can actually conclude that even among thieves, there is honor.
There's that among thieves. Anyway, weigh in on that very quickly. Arnold, because we finished in 10 minutes.
Even among pirates.
Yes.
You know how to share the loot.
On the CJ issue, especially when Dr. Juang actually is asking about the regional balancing,
yes.
I actually want to disagree with Dr. Ekuru on the issue where he says that he feels he doesn't feel comfortable talking about the tribe thing or such.
Yeah.
Each society defines its issues depending on how those issues affect them. How tribe even arrived literally littering the whole constitution, and you are part and parcel of it, is that it has affected how we administer state. It has affected how services are offered.
Absolutely.
Like, even as we want to look away and act like people from central Kenya and probably Rift Valley did not benefit from this regime more than the rest of us, we are not necessarily saying the truth. Because away from the money that goes to devolution, you need to look at the roads, the dams, and other infrastructure that has actually been put in some of those areas. You'll realize that the money that then is used by us, the government, in areas that are friendly. For example, I'd like you to take your own time and try to see the power connection in Gatundu South. Water. In Gatundu South, they almost achieved 100% water. I'm talking about piped water. Look at the roads. We're calling them the Mau Mau roads and everything else. We're talking about the dams. We're talking about dual carriages and everything going that side. So apart from that little, we are everything as a country, bar from being a devolved system. We are not.
Maliba, on that point, before we move to the next one, I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah.
But I think it's a bad culture, because today, if we go by that analogy you gave, then the Ogieks, the Boni, the Sengwer, the Malakote, the Samburu, the El Molo will forever be doomed in this country. All I'm saying is this: we need to go a step further and say, if you're holding public office, you must then be equitable in your service delivery to every Kenyan. In fact, that is the essence of devolution, starting from Article 6, sub-Article 3, that all state organs must devolve their services and functions to each and every part of the Republic of Kenya. So that's my expectation. But see, if we accept that kind of thing, because today, I doubt if today, say, I hold public office, I should not be seen to be channeling all resources of this country or services to the people of Turkana or to the parcels because I come from them. That will be wrong. I think we are not building a nation state.
Allow me to tie that point to the CJ issue. I actually was setting the background notes on why this ethnicity issue and balancing has actually found itself in the laws that we have it today. That even as we sit today, I know there is the ideal where we want to go. There is the aspirational, where all of us want to get to a place where leaders will be self-respecting, that those that are sent to public office will actually do right
On behalf of everyone.
So I actually was just giving an example that if you look at how much the state has spent in central Kenya, for example, you will actually realize that it's much more than it has spent elsewhere. So if devolution wasn't there, by the way, Turkana would still be suffering. So we have got what devolution is. And you look at that percentage of what is going to devolve units, it's actually a very small unit, as in a very small percentage. So since we are at this particular place, there's the mischief you people are trying to heal when you brought in the issues of balancing and ensuring that they're the face of Kenya. Introducing the whole idea about the face of Kenya, and people have always asked, are children not the face of Kenya? They're also part and parcel of it anyway. So on this CJ issue, already there is over-representation of a certain ethnicity in JSC. We're not going to run away from that. We can't run away from that. It's one of those things that I know we want to look like we're professional in this, but the legal profession, for example, for me, I think is the most civilized of all. Because we can disagree, we can fight in courts. See how the judges and people who are looking for the CJ position are being asked hard questions publicly, and it's very normal. They are answering and they are going home. On the political front, if I challenged him about something he did 20 years ago, he'll organize goons to beat me up. We, except for what we saw the other day, a few people trending a hashtag, that's the closest they came to hooliganism. Elsewhere, people were answering and responding and going home, and no one actually dies and no one is hurt. Okay. So I think Dr. Juang's question is very, very valid, and I hope that JSC will still look into that. Okay. Because for the bigger picture, and I know that from a learned perspective, some of these things we really don't want to talk about them. But we have got a president, we have got the leader of NIS, we have got Karen, and all those. You have seen that list going around. Yeah. It's common knowledge. We must also get to a level where
you confront it.
Out of the 15,000 or so legal minds in this country, honestly, we can get somebody from elsewhere.
But finally, one of the reasons
out of time,
one of the reasons why I think many people, like you say, shied away from applying for that position is the invasiveness into their own personal life. Especially both from the intelligence arm of government and even JSC. The moment they see you are the most competent, they will look for every dirt about you. I mean, remember 20...
Not looking for every dirt. Sometimes they create.
Okay, they can also create. But I spoke to a few of my friends in the judiciary, both in the bench and at the bar. Meaning not that bar that you're thinking.
Why do you have to think a bishop or a pastor have to be thinking about the bar?
So, but then one fundamental question that maybe we need to find time to talk to next time is why is there an interest in somebody being a chief justice? Because when I ask this question to my friend, judges' friends, and they tell me, that's rubbish. The CJ cannot force, for example, the six of us to rule. The CJ cannot force me as a magistrate or a judge to rule. So this is just, I don't know, a feel-good thing that one of our own is there. CJ only has one voice. In fact, CJ is not even powerful. If you look at, for example, even
everyone wants to feel good, Ekuru. Anyway, let's move. We all want to feel good. Now, finally, there's been jokes going around that some county assemblies passed the 1963 constitution, others banged the Ndugu Lion report. Now, the issues the BBI proponents are crying for. They're saying that BBI is being sabotaged.
I prophesied. You didn't want to listen
to me. So, now it's emerging that some county assemblies could have passed this debate. They didn't debate anyway, so we'll say for the sake of the sentence, debated and passed the wrong BBI bill because I know there was no debate anyway.
Part of our prophecy again.
Yes.
Was it 2018 or 2019? No, 2018. 2018, and I think that it is there on the screen. We said in a letter to Joseph Kinyua then, the head of public service. We also wrote to the Kenyans generally, and we told them BBI is a false promise. BBI is a con game. We said BBI was a big lie. They said that BBI was here to establish what ails this country. We pointed out, Bitok, if you look at the document that I've circulated, then about 9 or 11 reports from commissions of inquiries that pointed out what the problem with Kenya is. Starting from the TJRC, Ndungu Commission report on matters land, Truth, Justice and Reconciliation, the Aukot Commission, the Kriegler on post-election violence, on electoral matters, or Waki on, we pointed all these things. And when we looked at all things, the fact that these reports are gathering dust, and then there was Ula Balu around BBI and all the money, about 10 billion being given, we made one summation, which I will just share. We said, it is in that document, that BBI is unconstitutional, it's amorphous, it's repetitive, it's duplicious, but most importantly, it is directionless. It does not know where it wants to take these people of Kenya. And we have been proven with the fullness of time, because today we are talking about 3 possible BBI bills out there. So which direction are we going?
We love our
country. That was our prophecy. And I'm beginning to have the last laugh.
Unaweza nipea prophecy ya pesa. Unaweza pesa inakuja lini? Ama kanisa itapanuka lini? Oh, interesting. Anyway, Daktari Abraham, what are your thoughts on this? Amen.
Yeah, I think when you look at
what a tragic end. And the most interesting thing is the ODM is conspicuously quiet. I think the only person who is making noise is Mwangi, who was refused. By the way, Paul Mwangi, we've invited Paul Mwangi. This is the 3rd time. Yesterday I also talked to him. He said he's not going to be on Ramadan, but I've seen him. He was on KTN. So I don't know why. If he has to be tackled.
You know what he said?
Paul Mwangi.
He said that this is the act of sabotage. So, for me, I was like, wait a minute. I wished KTN was going to rewind that bit, that they are being sabotaged. So I asked myself, who on earth could be sabotaging the government and the opposition who have actually come together? Who is this who is sabotaging?
My thoughts, Gerald, are that, like Ekuru, I think, for me, BBI has been pursued as a very dishonest project in the country.
That's true.
And I think at some stage, dishonesty begins to, to fragment. It begins to break down because the core of it, is not really solid. This is a project that has been touted a popular initiative process. What is popular about it?
Nothing.
If you look at our Katiba, a popular initiative process is the one like the one Ekuru started with the Punguza Mzigo, a private citizen, taking it through, popularizing citizens about, the proposals, taking the difficult steps, of going before county, of getting 1 million signatures in support, getting it through the verification, and then eventually finding it in the county assemblies and making a very clear and coherent case about it.
And our bill was out there.
And the bill was out here for months. What we have in terms of BBI is unfortunately a state project. And yet the state doesn't really want to say it's a state project. It still wants to clothe it as a people's project. What has been pointed out, or what is emerging, is, and we said this before as well, that really there is no clear regulatory framework to guide the process. There is no law to define the roles of different actors and to define thresholds. For example, we say, and there is, I believe there is a suit in court on these questions. Part of the question was county assemblies. When the bill hits the county assembly, what is the role of the county assembly? Does it engage in public participation? Does it amend that whatever provision based on public participation, comments from the Wananchi? Okay? Now, if it's able to make those amendments, that means you will have potentially 47 different bills. How do you harmonize? Okay? The question being posed around the role of Parliament and whether Parliament can reopen the process. Again, the requirement of public participation is in Article 10 and cuts across various other provisions. And the question is, should Parliament take these out? What is the fate of the comments from the public? What is the role of Parliament? What are the timelines? So there are so many gaps, in the implementation of Article 256 and 257, to an extent really where the lack of a law means that what is going on is arbitrary. There's a lot of guesswork. And the confusion that you see right now is a function of that uncertainty in the law. And the best thing would have been for government to step back and really restart the process. Let's have a law to guide the process, rather than playing, the kind of games.
But see, Abraham, on that point, before Maliba comes in, when we were promoting the Punguza Mizigo 2019, they brought all this issue. I remember I was even summoned.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, I was summoned in Parliament before the Jeremiah Kioni commission, committee.
Yes.
And they told me, Ekuru, yes, we like what you're doing, but you have to wait for a referendum law. That they warned us about that. And then when the bill eventually, and we were, and they said we are going to bring everybody who is promoting a referendum. So I said, I don't have a problem with that. Bring us. They never brought us. Secondly, when now the bill passed and it went to Bunge, to the county assemblies, they insisted on public participation. If you remember, all the county assemblies created some time to go to their respective wards. All the MCs were told, go to your respective wards and then tell people about this bill. And I remember some of the counties even invited me to participate in their public participation exercises. I remember I went to Nandi, Baringo, Wapi, a few of them. Kericho, they all invited me. But now when it comes to BBI, the rules have changed.
Correct.
We have not seen public participation, both even in the making of this bill. Remember, it started as a workshop. And I remember during that time, we were actually going around promoting the Punguza Mizigo bill in the county assemblies, and I will ask this question to the speakers and the MCAs. Why are you invited to the BBI process? A lot of them, all of them, the 29 of them I went, they said, no, we didn't even know they came here. For example, I remember in Marsabit, they came and they went to a resort far from Marsabit town and many others. In Kisumu, they went to a 5-star hotel, and it was by invitation. Then later on, when they realized Kenyans were actually angry about this process being shoved down their throat, that's when they now started second round of signature collection, and which was done in a record 1 week. When it took me over 1 year to get 1.4 million signatures, which was later reduced to 1.2 million. So double standards from parliament, from county assemblies, from the political. So again,
and it's double standards because of it's the arbitrariness.
Yes.
All right, the arbitrariness because there is really no guiding framework. And even if this bill were to go beyond Bunge, the question is, what is the role of the president in that process?
Exactly.
Okay. All right? What is then, how do you carry out a referendum? Is it a single issue referendum? Or is it a multiple issue referendum? Given the fact that you're trying to amend 78 provisions of the Katiba, is it fair to ask Wananchi say yes or no, and yet they may agree with one provision and disagree with the rest of them?
Okay. As we go to Arnold, I think there are two people who have been vindicated, apart from Nabi, Ekuru, Aukot. There's also another Mzee called Mzee Sehi. He was here, and he said that this document that he was given to sign, and I'm saying Abbas Dugun has really captured this. Mzee Sehi said that he signed a document which he later realized was not what Wananchi told them during their tours around the country. That was a first red signal on this BBI drama. So two people have been vindicated, Nabi Aukot, Ekuru Aukot, and Mzee Sehi.
I should call him Jesse for chai.
Yes, you owe him chai.
But a lot of Kenyans actually who are very opposed, and there are so many Kenyans who feel like BBI is an unnecessary process. They don't think it makes sense, and we have aired our grievances, and of course no one listens to us. Of course we are drowned by the power of state and media and such. So there are so many Kenyans who still feel BBI is voodoo. We don't understand what it is about. This BBI thing is an abracadabra word. You don't know exactly what it means.
Where did you turn from, Arnold? You were selling BBI sometimes.
No. You know too well. When you called me here, you thought I was selling BBI. But I'm actually one of those people who have been very... He knows. So, along the way, I feel that BBI raises issues that all of us know are challenges in this country. But the answers, the way it's responding to it is actually the wrong way. And we were asking about, is it a priority?
Antagonism.
Are these the answers we're talking about? Youth apathy.
But Maliba, to answer my question, Do you think BBI was bringing anything new other than we did not know, apart from, for example, the many commission of inquiry reports that are there?
That is why I'm actually saying it's voodoo, because you cannot tell me how this process is actually going to ensure that it has taken care of the divisive elections, for example. I do not see a solution on how divisive elections is tackled from the bill. I have not seen that yet. I have not seen how this particular bill and the processes they put through takes care of lack of national ethos, for example. I have not seen those solutions. Of course, we have got a problem with probably lack of national ethos or adherence to it. But then I have not seen a solution to it. That's why for me, I feel sometimes it's a solution about a problem that doesn't exist.
So should we start a petition for it to be abandoned?
Not even. I think out of good sense, this thing should be thrown out. But I want to go to the politics, the real politics about BBI. When you hear about different versions of the bill, and that is why, sometimes I liken Chebukati and Uhuru Kenyatta. Those people have thrived because people underestimate them. So when you underestimate Chebukati, he comes on top. The state talked to a few commissioners of IBC to leave and therefore then start a process to push Chebukati out. He survived. It's the state who's come out and ensured that they take care of the people they told to stop working. What Chebukati did was very basic. After the promoters took 6 copies to him, he went back to them and asked.
He claims it was 47.
No,
57.
He asked.
57, yes.
They initially, on the day of handing over, they brought him 6. Then he went back to them and told them, give us extra copies that are certified. So when they started the debate about different copies, the whole idea was we want to use that to force Chebukati outside of IBC because he's the one, quote unquote, playing games. So he's kept quiet, and yesterday he did his statement, and he says, we asked them for an extra 57 copies.
So are you trying to say you already seen the errors with the 6 copies? That's why you are saying give us the certified ones.
Yes, he asked for certified ones to distribute to the counties. So that for him, he played just a conveyor belt. You have brought me the bills, you certified them, and we move them to the counties.
So now, is there a possibility that you already knew about the errors in the document?
No, as a long-time lawyer, he knew too well how these things play out. So he went back to them and asked them for certified copies. And they did know.
But Maliba also told it's an inside job.
Now, I'm actually coming to part 2.
Yes.
Now, the part 2 bit of this is... Now, the part 2 of this is this.
This is coming juicy.
At this particular point now, the only person, now that we have ruled out IBC, the only other person who can have messed out the bills, there are only 2 sources. Either the secretariat, the BBI secretariat itself, which is a likelihood. Now that Chebukati has said it is them who gave me these copies.
So we now go back to Paul Mwangi.
Or another boogeyman that we have always complained, that along the way, NIS then changed the copies. Those are the only 2 people you can blame at this particular level.
Because NIS knows that this thing is unpopular on the ground. So they have to create confusion around it.
So yesterday,
but then again, maybe it was designed to fail.
And he knows yesterday,
they could be meddled in the madness.
Yesterday Mwangi, he knows, Mwangi said that of course it is them who gave out those copies. And he changed the tune and said that it is just... that all the bills in the counties, there are no 2 copies, it's just 1, and that the only problems they have are grammar and stuff. He changed tune when just a few minutes, you know where I'm saying he spoke.
Yes. I know
just a few minutes after he had said that it was IBC playing games. When IBC responded, he changed immediately, and you can follow the conversation line on that thought. And actually thought you are reading through. Even
I was reading, then again he escaped when I was cornering to come and face
Ekuru. He tried to push him, then he ran away. So we are 2 places. Number one side of the BBI promotion side has already used Raila, for example, and they are faced with the dilemma that normally faces all murderers.
How do you dispose the body?
How do I dispose the body. Now they have Raila.
It's like the story of that man who killed his girlfriend and got stuck in the mud.
Yes.
It's juicy. Yes, take us through that.
So that's how he was caught.
So normally when guys were learning intelligence 101, when you're being introduced to intelligence, they say that when you're planning to do a crime, especially when you're talking about somebody's going to do a murder, you start with the end in mind. You start with disposing the body,
then you
walk backwards until
the killing
the time you are commissioning. When, of course, there was a challenge when Uhuru was coming up with the handshake and BBI. So they are done with that. They are not comfortable handing over this thing to Raila, because we all know Raila. He's a very independent-minded man. He can play along with you. If this man went into Kanu and moved outside, so he's not
I don't
that
think
late.
independence is the right word for him. He's cunning.
He's cunning.
Yes.
So now the other bit of this is this. Truly, if you look at BBI, it does not help Raila in anything. And I know Raila is not stupid. He knows.
Is that why ODM is square?
There is no benefit.
So they produce a second version.
There is no benefit for Raila in BBI. However much he wants to become president, right? There is nowhere in BBI where they are saying they will crown him or take it to his home in Karen or Bondo.
Like the Mbuzi.
So from where? From my analytical thinking, the only person who honestly has got serious interest in BBI is Uhuru Kenyatta. Because for him, it has got some semblance. There are you can see some traces of him holding DNA. Some control after he has exited office.
Or doing a Putin on us.
Or trying something like that. So the only person who honestly stands to benefit, look even at the 70, let us get best.
So Maliba, assuming one version is Uhuru, the other version is Raila. This other third version is from who? Let's because somebody must be responsible for a version.
We must allocate the versions.
What belongs to Kenazingwa. So far we have allocated one version to Raila, one version to Uhuru. Hii ingine ya tatu
There is a third one, and I don't want to mention names. Yes. I'm actually going to the third one. The other bit of it is that then a few other people around the president want to manage his succession.
Yes.
That brings me to the quality of the people in the secretariat. I have worked on some statecraft projects, and I'll tell you free of charge, that the people who were in the secretariat were of low quality. And I will say that without actually winking. He knows the kind of people who would be put on a project like that. These guys recruited people. I'm not talking about the commissioners level. I'm talking about the secretariat. Yes. They recruited people simply because they were passionate and they were defending those things either on social media or elsewhere. People with very little experience in statecraft. People who don't know how to handle some of these things. So probably they were infiltrated even at that level, at the secretariat level. And that is where they were hurt and they lost it at that particular level. So there are two reasons why the president is powerful today. BBI and the lack of a successor from Mount Kenya. The only reason why the president is not a lame duck president is just two things. He has got a lot of interest in BBI. A lot of interest in BBI. It's giving him a lifeline. And how do you take away BBI if Raila decides to kill BBI? And the other bit is that then the problem is now is the lack of an emergent leader from Mount Kenya. Now, the president is running roughshod on us because partly, and I think that is the mistake the deputy president did. In his own ways, of course, he will argue that the president ensured that there was no successor coming from Mount Kenya, but he also contributed to it largely because he wanted to go to Mount Kenya on his own without using any window or a middleman or anything. So he decided to go to them directly. That delayed a new person coming from Mount Kenya. Now, the president feels there is no challenge at home. And then Raila has given him BBI. The president is literally unstoppable. He is everywhere, and that's why I still insist.
So how do they cure this?
For Raila, I do not think there is anything in BBI that.
So what's the fate of BBI as we wind up? I think we are almost 20 minutes.
I know these guys being people who believe in witchcraft. You know when I talk about witchcraft. You know when you talk about witchcraft, as in, even when Shakespeare argues that there is that even madness has got a method to it. Yes. The way these guys love to do their things, you realize that there is no method, as in, they just mix up stuff. I'm actually thinking Uhuru will still try to push through this thing. And then it will end up in courts.
Yeah, but
That's why it will die.
But
It'll die in the
talk,
courts.
Bitok. I mean, with all due respect, there is no way BBI is going to come back to life again. It is dead.
Okay.
Dead because right now it has been proven and everybody has spoken about it. The proponents have spoken about it. IEBC that was supposed to forward it has spoken about it. County assemblies have spoken about it. The fact that there is a problem with this bill. We don't know which bill we are passing. So really, the authenticity of the IEBC, of the BBI bill is in question. And therefore, there is no way you can resuscitate. This is already a dead body.
So the faith is
even
dead.
if you bring the mortician, they cannot be able to do anything to the dead body.
Bitok.
The truth for the matter is this. BBI, besides all that being tried, people are trying, whether we can resuscitate or not, completely it's dead.
Allow me just to remind him one of those rules that you actually need to remind him every day. He actually comes up and says some of these things. The rule number 1 in this country: thou shall not be surprised. I want you to lower your expectations. We are dealing with people who, like I've told you, they do things.
With all due respect, the reason we cannot lower our expectation about this country
With Uhuru.
is the reason we cannot lower our expectation because you are telling us to accept these shenanigans that are going around in our country and as a fait accompli. No, I think for me there is something we need to do, and let me tell you, even the good Lord, as they say, works in very mysterious ways. At the risk of sounding like a bishop
You believe it?
At the risk of firing me.
when we thought we are already on the cliff, just about to be
fall
pushed,
off.
then pandemic happened. That's a blessing in disguise. Then reggae stopped. Then as if we knew that the bill now is about to go through parliament, then this thing of 3 versions of the bill comes. That is the good Lord working in very mysterious ways.
It's a pandemic. Right. Don't worry.
It's a pandemic on its own.
You see,
Yes.
when the pandemic showed up, and it's an old Jubilee mantra, that if there's something that is going to become a wave, even if they're opposed to it, they will actually stand in front and behave as if it's their own. They started leveraging on...
So we have won the pandemic.
So now they've owned the pandemic. They even act sometimes like it's them who invented it.
It's our baby.
As in, they are really nurturing it. The same thing.
Yes. In fact, nobody else should vaccinate it except us. It's our baby.
Knowing too well what these guys can do, I will not be surprised if they still push this thing. Never mind that we don't have a full IBC.
So which one will they push?
Never mind that we have got an election here.
No, Maliba, which one will
Out
they
of
push?
the 3.
I have seen Mwangi already saying that there is only one. That's why I'm actually praying for the people in jail.
No, you see,
that we look at their report and it's able to demonstrate that we honestly have got more than one version.
Then you see, then let's do the maths, Bitok. Let's do the maths. Assuming, okay, you told us that thou shall not be surprised.
Yeah.
Let's assume now they fix this mess. Okay, where will we restart the process from? Because the process is very clear under the Constitution.
We have to go back again to collect
promoters of a
signatures.
bill must take it to IEBC with the supporters of at least 1 million.
Yeah.
IEBC will then verify those. Yeah,
They're insisting it's grammar.
No, wait. I mean, it's not grammar. I mean, you see, even a comma in law, as you know, a full stop. It's serious.
You remember that
You know,
conversation
that's
we
the
took
law.
yesterday?
Yeah.
A comma, full stop, and
There's no grammar in law.
There's no grammar in law.
In a statute.
In a statute or whatever. That's the law. So, assuming now they resuscitate.
So where did they get this?
Let's assume they resuscitate this dead body. Okay, where do we restart the process? Because either you take back to IEBC and tell your IEBC, now take back this, based upon what?
I suppose, Ekuru, what they will be trying to do is to say, because the net effect of what has happened is that we did not attain the threshold from county assemblies.
Yes, they
for
did
this
not.
bill
Yeah.
to be to go before Bunge.
Yeah.
All right? Because insofar as they're saying that it's only about 11 counties,
Or is it 11 or 13?
or 11 or 13,
Yes.
that got the right bill.
Exactly.
So 13 is way below the threshold.
Absolutely.
All right?
Yeah.
So you have to go, at the minimum,
You'll go back.
to
The county
the
the
people.
assemblies.
Yes.
No,
To the
no,
assemblies.
no,
To which
no, no, no.
people? You
You
get,
see,
so I
once
imagine
with which
that-
bill now?
You know? So they might want to
Exactly.
take...
Okay. So which one do you choose? Out of the
So now,
Here's the point.
okay, so if we say, okay, let's apportion the right bill, tufanye madhafu.
Haraka mazana
Yeah.
ba.
Okay, the right bill was approved by say 11 or 13. Let's be generous and give them 13. 13 counties. Okay? Now, those 13 counties, their time has lapsed because constitution is within 3 months. Yes, that's the constitution.
Absolutely.
And
It's lapsed.
and Article 257.
Absolutely.
Time has lapsed.
In fact, that's the point I was going to
so
make.
So the bill is dead.
Dead as a dodo.
Yes.
Aya, asifiwe yes.
Because county assemblies have only 3 months within which to.
But again, another question
time
is
has
okay.
already run out.
How do we? Because
I do not know.
you cannot come and tell us this is the correct one. There are 3. So how
That's
do
what I'm
you
saying.
convince
That's what
us
I'm
that out of the
saying.
That's
three?
what I'm thinking.
Authenticity.
The bill, the report that we are depending on to actually come out and demonstrate that there was more than one version of the bill is actually the JLAC report.
Okay.
So JLAC could sanitize it.
Since that report is not public yet, I know that the people in Jubilee do not behave like believers, but I can tell you they believe in miracles. Okay. That report can actually show up and it will actually be
No, but
streamlined.
based upon which bill?
Okay.
Based upon which, because
It is
first of all,
JLAC that is telling us
you
the
know-
report from where the media is actually reporting where we have got more than 2
Bitok.
bill.
Let's be honest. You know,
Tufunge na mwananchi.
let's
Kienda
assume,
nyumbani.
okay.
Okay,
There's a bit of a country of laws.
Yeah.
First of all, the ownership of this bill is not JLAC's. Neither is it the county assemblies. It is the promoters as by the constitution. So it's the promoters who have come out to say there is sabotage. So the question then is, which bill did you take to IEBC? And IEBC is just a conveyor belt. That's what IEBC is. Anyway, 2020.
Haya, tufunge na mwananchi. Jambo, habari ya asubuhi.
Hello, good morning, Bitok.
Good morning to you. Acha tufunge kazi na wewe.
My name is Martin.
Yes, Martin.
So I wanted to ask the legal minds inside the studio today.
Yes.
What stops somebody from going to court again and saying that the entire process of the BBI is a fraud?
Okay.
With the new entrants coming in that the county assembly did pass different bills. What stops somebody from going to the court and filing a petition for the entire process to just go away?
Okay, thank you. All right. Who is that? Who am I speaking to? Oh, yeah, ameshaenda. Singwai, very quickly, please respond to that. Tufunge kiosk.
The simple answer is nothing stops.
I think it already has a myriad of a number of cases in
Do
court.
the talk of the day.
It has
right?
several. Yeah, please pull up the
So
talk
for
of
me,
the
I
day.
think as I do my talk of the day, nothing stops you. You can go to court, but I will tell you, save your money, because there's no point of going to court over a dead issue. It's already dead. But I want to as I conclude, I want to refer to something that Maliba said. This is about the German pastor. It's called Martin Niemöller.
Yeah.
And his poem was called "First They Came." And he said that in relation to the Jubilee camp of William Ruto. And this is what the poem says. First, they came for the socialists.
Yes.
And I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist. And I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. And I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me. And there was no one left to speak for me. I think the point is this. As we try to shape this country to benefit of all of us, let's speak out when bad things are happening. Don't say because I'm now in a comfort zone or I'm in government, I will not speak when, for example, constitutionalism is being trampled upon and human rights is being trampled upon. Let's speak for Kenya because Kenya belongs to all of us in equal measure, and that's my tackle of the day.
All right. Arnold, I'll take your tackle of the day, then I'll finish with Daktari. Singwai.
My tackle of the day is premised on our role as citizens. We are not in this country by invitation of anyone, and you are not entirely helpless. And I'll draw one example. Last night, IMF was doing a briefing. Kenyans landed on that page. It was live on Facebook again. And that briefing was cut short immediately after Kenyans showed up with, and it was late at night, but Kenyans saw IMF on it. You are not, as a citizen, entirely helpless. You see, the way you forced the other day, was it the World Bank, to respond on what they were giving Kenya and
IMF.
It was still IMF putting out a 120-page document to lay bare everything. And that is how low we have sunk, that it took IMF to come and save Kenya against its own public. The government did not come, it didn't say anything. It
tell us what actually the
IMF
government
to
should
come
have
and explain to Kenya's own public, when ordinarily it should be the government dealing with its own public at first. So you see the way you have actually forced IMF to actually become responsive and respond to what the issues locally here. You can actually do it at home.
Okay.
You are not helpless. You are powerful. That small tweet you do, that particular post you put up there,
could go a long
reaching
way.
out, it can go a long way. What I want them to do is actually to transfer that, to become active citizens, not just online, but to actually transfer that to how they make their electoral decisions when we get to the ballot next year. Please choose a wise person. We were to talk about the qualifications and how they've come up there and everything else, but we can actually say it later on. Even though I know the way these guys made the constitution, somebody will go to court and it will actually be torpedoed. Okay. So as an individual, you have got power. It's small, that one vote, that one tweet. If a tweet can change so much, what can a vote do?
Okay. All right. Dr. Singwe, your tackle of the day.
Since we are in the mood for encouraging or incentivizing civic citizenship, I think I'm also reminded of the words of Roosevelt, who said, "It's not the critic who counts.
It's a man in the ring.
Neither the person who shows or who points out how the strong man, what the strong man should do, but the credit goes to the man or woman on the arena. The man or woman whose face is marred with dust, sweat, and blood. That's the person who will make the difference." I urge Kenyans, especially young people, to move beyond just being critics, but to get to the arena. All right? Okay. And to stand to be counted. Thank you very much.
All right. Asante sana. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming in. It's been a great Sheria Wiki show on Friday. I mean, it's the best way to wind up the week. Every other time, I mean, there could never be any better way to do a Friday. Likisara Jabo said the CJ was pre-selected a long time ago. It is and shall be CJ Ngatia, Jirodis Congo, but the best are not offering themselves. And the reason cannot be that CJ Maraga didn't have a good relationship with the Jubilee administration. Well, we all know that the reason is because he nullified the election, and maybe going forward, the law should be changed so that the presidential election should never be nullified, just to guarantee the relationship of the executive and the judiciary. But I did get one through that was loud and clear during the interview. Asante sana. Bernard Chias, friend Gatias, is teaching, interviewing the panel. Liki Jabaria says he refuses. Abbas Njuguna, CJIBC, what authorizes his election 2022. Mr. Above must early be involved, especially that succession is cooking. Abi Kulaz, why so much coverage by media on this process of vetting? It's because the CJ is already selected, and this show is just for the formality to make Kenyans feel the process was followed. Jackson James Singoe, watching from Weben, Sergweta Asante sana. Beking Jr., great talk, thank you. Beking Jr., the true BBI was a scam from the beginning. Like asking Muta Kenya yetu ni movie, you no longer need to buy movies. Say I to the panel. David Karanja, haya tayari ushapata yako. Simon Kairo, Dr. Abraham Korir Singoe, Magavana 2022. Matisia Nzimi, great show. Please ask Dr. Ekuru to share his prophecy. Tayari alishata unabii. Alishata unabii. Abdi Kule says Kwanza Jubilee government ni serious movie. Kuna a lot of episodes that you can't finish in a week. All right, asante sana. Bas Njuguna Mzee said, I think I read it earlier, Kipkalia Arab cause gay, BBI has been a scam since its birth. Bas Njuguna, look at how the campaigns were conducted around the country to popularize BBI. The campaigners used to walk around with only a page or a paragraph depending on region or the mood of the people. All right. Just Nogi says BBI's Viewers' objectives was to fix DP. Now the DP seems to have been properly punctured. BBI is no longer useful. Titus questions hapa kwa BBI, both Raila and Uhuru are beneficiaries. Tusidanganyane. Abdikulas, sasa tungekuwa na different version of constitution if it could have been passed. 3 versions. of Katiba ya Kenya. Joe Aweru, if Uhuru with all intelligence and machinery document can be faked, what about us Kenyans? That is why everything in Kenya looks fake. Abbas Njuguna, and in case the dead BBI is brought to Wananchi for referendum, we would kill it again. Okay. Pauline Cherop says BBI before it's bury BBI before it stinks. Bury BBI before it stinks. That is Pauline. Stan Mellis, who are the MCS going to get another 2 million to matches round 2. Roger Kitur says, how will they take the right document to the counties? Under what guidelines? The law must be BBI. The law must bite the BBI other than it bites a chicken thief. All right. Solomon Kirwa, enyewe hii kitu ni nyoka vile baba alisema nyoka ametoka shimo. Abbas Njuguna, cremation is better. Wasema zizikwe waichome kabisa. Moses Waeru Irungu, nice, good job, big boys. Thank you, Linus Kimutai. Agree with Arnold. Look at what happened in Europe in terms of football and the Super League. We have a voice, be it online or offline. Stan Melly, stand to be counted. Kipkalia Arab Kosgei. Have a good day, guys. I've picked mine in today's topic with the legal team. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. We really appreciate it. It has been the Tackle Sheria Wiki edition with Daktari Ekuru, Aukot, Daktari Abraham Singoe, Arnold Maliba, a public policy analyst. Until Monday, we hope to see you. Sanitize and stay safe. Bye-bye.